All right. Welcome, everybody. Ooh. Welcome to City Hall. I've never seen this many people in here ever, so it's really good to see you. So calling to order our Tuesday, June 6th regular meeting. I will have our city clerk start with our roll call.
Mayor Kaylee Clark.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Amy Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Howe.
Here.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Present.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Atuja Indapure.
Here.
Councilmember Roisin O'Farrell.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor Lamb, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Stewart, do you mind doing the land acknowledgement?
Do you have a copy of that?
Oh, yeah. Top of the page.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Great, thank you. So first up, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so first up, we have public comment. I assume that's why you are all here, and I'm so happy to see you. So I think, first up, we have Courtney Sullivan.
And when making your comments, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
And I will also mention that we have a 3-minute timer, and you should see lights up there as it counts down. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Courtney Sullivan. I'm the Regional Education Director for National Wildlife Federation, and I'm here today to celebrate the 12-year anniversary of Sammamish being a community wildlife habitat. The city and volunteers in Sammamish have taken exceptional action to preserve, enhance, restore, and connect wildlife habitat, while also communicating the importance of habitat stewardship to the public. The National Wildlife Federation's Garden for Wildlife programs, such as the Community Wildlife Habitat Program, partners with communities like Sammamish and over 40 across the Puget Sound to become healthier, greener, and more wildlife friendly. Community wildlife habitats garden and landscape with wildlife in mind, promoting the use of native trees and plants and integrating wildlife-friendly practices. Sammamish has worked over 12 years to earn community-wide certification by supporting individual properties like homes, parks, schools, businesses, places of worship, and others as certified wildlife habitats, and by doing education and outreach in the community. These volunteers, working along with the city, have enhanced and restored islands and pockets of corridor of wildlife habitat throughout Sammamish, while at the same time connecting to existing work around climate resiliency, community resiliency, urban forestry, water conservation, supporting pollinators, and much more. The National Wildlife Federation happens to be also celebrating a big anniversary. It's our 50th year of our Garden for Wildlife program. And so we are so thankful and excited to be here to celebrate, working with these amazing volunteers to plant with a purpose in Sammamish. We invite everyone here today to join this impact and certify your own space. We have a little flyer in the back on the tables. Please help yourself. And if it's okay with Mayor Clark, may I present you with your certificate of 12 years?
Yes, please. Yeah, all of us. Yeah. I think probably those in the green shirts, we could not do this without you. I'm sure one of you probably made this initiative, so thank you. Yeah, probably Jan Bird. Yeah.
Jan had a lot to do with this. You were one of the first, 2011, when we first certified. I think you and Pauline.
Back here also.
Yep.
Awesome.
Katja.
Sharon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sharon, you're up next.
So I have a map here that shows all the properties in Sammamish. Currently, we have a running total of about over 312 properties in Sammamish that have certified: schools, places of business, churches, people's yards, and parks. And these two signs that I have on the floor there, you can't see them very well, but watch for those signs in the community. You'll see them in the parks. You'll see them. And so I just wanted to read a little. The Sammamish Wildlife Habitat Stewards would like to say a heartfelt thank you to the City of Sammamish for supporting our efforts over these 12 years. We would particularly like to thank our parks and public work departments for supporting our efforts by buying native plants, creating a dedicated nursery space for native plants, creating an Adopt a Stormwater Pond program, and we especially thank Lisa Weir for her efforts to implement this program. For supporting our efforts to salvage native plants, for hosting the Earth Day celebration, and for supporting the Bee City USA program. This is huge support. It is Pollinator Month, and if you hadn't had a chance, be sure to check out the beautiful pollinator garden, which Steve Marple has designed and planted. It's now in its second year. It's located north of the Heritage Garden at Big Rock Park Central. We also thank the city for supporting community activities that allow our Sammamish youth to earn community service hours and engage with nature by volunteering in our parks, stormwater ponds, and at Lower Commons. We thank the city for supporting the Wildlife Habitat Stewards Training Program and the Washington Native Plant Society Training Program. Native plants support our native wildlife. The city has smartly budgeted for these stewardship training programs, and these stewards are working in city parks, at Lower Commons, and at city stormwater ponds. Please continue to invest in and support this valuable resource and to make use of us. And we thank the city staff who tirelessly work with us and for our wildlife, and we invite them to join us in celebrating 12 years of providing habitat for wildlife in Sammamish. People in Sammamish do care about wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Should I leave these signs?
You can leave them up, yeah. Haley. Haley and Company.
I don't like being alone. My name is Haley Gudgeon. I'm the current president of Platopians for Peace. We're a local charity that aims to promote a united, supportive, and inclusive community here in Sammamish. We do not discriminate or judge those who need us to stand up for them and their right to be accepted. We believe that everyone has the right to choose their own faith or no faith and their own lifestyle, but not to impose their life choices on others. This is a city council and as such should be free from religious bias and judgment. We were very disturbed by the recent statement by the now resigned planning commissioner. In his statement, he spoke of diversity training and Pride Month and referred to LGBTQ community, describing them as spreading their disease and promoting diseases and infestations into the minds of our kids in schools. Here in Sammamish, we live alongside our neighbours who have many and varied lives for many reasons, and our children are safe because we respect the differences in others and value their input in the community. Whether that is politics, sexuality, or faith, we need to respect the rights of others and protect their right to make those choices. We understand the City Council has recently undertaken diversity training, yet this incident happened soon after, and no one else spoke up or stopped this diatribe, which lasted for 5 minutes. Following the statement, the only comment made was, "Thank you for building on the training we had," before moving on to the next item. While we recognise a public statement has now been made, this should have been addressed immediately because it was necessary, not delayed until there was outcry days later. I suggest additional training is required in how to handle conflict and advocacy. Pride Month is a time for us to learn more about how our LGBTQ community lives and for us to become better allies. This incident showed them only that people can dehumanize them and it will be ignored. To be an ally and represent this community, I expect the City Council to speak up when they say, hear, or are present as parts of our community are referred to as an infestation or verbally attacked in any other way. Silence condones these attitudes and causes untold damage to those targeted, and we cannot afford to stand by as our community members are attacked, leaving them unprotected. I have yet to see the LGBTQ community do more than try to protect themselves, their rights to make their own choices, live their own lives, and try to create more awareness of who they are and their right to live safely. Platopians for Peace, all of us, will stand with and support the rights of anyone, regardless of our own life choices as individuals, because they are a valued part of our diverse community. I would like the Council to address what steps they will be taking going forward to learn from this situation and become better allies and representatives for the greater community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Cheryl Smith. I'm a Sammamish mosaic artist, and I'm here representing Eastside Pride Pacific Northwest. It's human nature to want to be accepted, respected, loved, and to feel safe. Don't we all want to feel that way? We gather at Pride celebrations around my mosaic tables to feel that acceptance and that safe community. Last year at the Sammamish Farmers Market and last weekend at Bellevue's Paws and Pride, I witnessed over 1,000 people of all ages celebrating just being themselves. As they laid glass and progress flag mosaics, it was joyful and we felt very, very safe. When that safety was breached this week, we gathered even tighter. That's why we're here tonight, to show that we are not afraid of hatred and we are not afraid of misinformation. Everyone has a voice, but with that comes responsibility and consequences. We are here to show that we will continue to have our respectful voices heard, continue to create a safe community in Sammamish and all over, and treat all humans with dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. Uma?
Good evening. Thank you for giving this opportunity, first of all. My name is Uma Coimbatore. I'm a Sammamish steward. I take care of restoration of ponds along with my group, other Sammamish stewards. Currently, I'm running as a candidate for City of Sammamish Council, position number 2. I have 3 topics on which I want to comment or ask questions. How do we connect the isolated small wetlands and forests within the City of Sammamish? Do you have some program or plan to connect these isolated small wetlands and forests within the city? Can you incorporate this into our city plan? That's my first. The second one is, can we create an overpass or underpass for animals to cross in few places on 228 and other busy streets? That's the second one. The third one is, when other day I saw a deer struggling to get to Elahi Water Pond from the other side of the steel fence, I felt helpless watching him so close to water, but he couldn't get it. My request is, if possible, can we make sure wetlands, ponds, and forests are open at least on 3 sites at the least. Can we please pass a law that'll reduce the fence height for a reasonable level or create opening every few feet? Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren?
My name is Lauren Skaggs. I'm a dad and a 22-year resident of Sammamish. I have 3 quick points. My first point, I rewrote yesterday afternoon, and it's quick. Thank you to the City Council for your statement, and thank you for your securing Mr. Fayed's resignation. I slept a lot better last night than I did Sunday night. Number 2, further action is clearly needed to determine just what went wrong with the city's DEIB training. Regardless of how closed-minded Mr. Fayed was going into the training, and it's clear he was closed-minded, he should have at least left the training with some basic understanding of how to behave in a workplace and in a public meeting. DEIB training cannot necessarily change hearts or minds, but we should at least be able to educate people's mouths. And finally, number 3, I didn't think this is going to be necessary, but it clearly is. Can we please get some pride flags up and down to 28th? Thank you.
Thank you. Just as G.
Yes, hello. My name is Gaston Skaggs. Good evening, Mayor Clark and members of the council. I'm here tonight as a 22-year resident of Sammamish who has raised 2 children here. I'm here to speak out against the hate speech made by Wasim Fayed in his official role as a Sammamish City Planning Commissioner. When he attacked the LGBTQ+ community, he attacked my family, my friends, my loved ones. He used disgusting language meant to dehumanize members of the LGBTQ+ community. His speech was an attempt to other them. But members of the LGBTQ+ community are not others. They are our community members. They are our children, our parents, our siblings, our neighbors, our friends, our loved ones. So when he attacked the LGBTQ+ community, he was attacking our community. And I'm here to say, hate has no place here in Sammamish. We will stand against hate in every instance. I want to add how disappointed I am that none of the other commissioners did anything to stop the hate speech. They sat in silence, and one commissioner even thanked him. This was even after they had just gone through DEIB training. I think the city needs a different DEIB trainer because clearly this was a big fail. And now, today, during Pride Month, the Human Rights Campaign has just declared a national state of emergency in response to threats, violence, homophobia, and transphobia. And we had a front row seat to that here in Sammamish. Already this year, states have introduced more than 400 anti-LGBTQ+ bills. So I'm here to say we won't tolerate hate in Sammamish. We're better than that. Sammamish stands for respect and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula?
Good evening, Sammamish City Council. My name is Paula Harper Christensen, and I'm standing on my toes to be tall enough. And Sammamish resident for 36 years. Sometimes I forget to say thank you. So I came tonight to say thank you. Thank you to the City Council, to the city staff, to the Deputy Mayor, to the Mayor for the most lovely, welcoming Pride ceremony celebration that intertwined with the farmers market. And it was a beautiful evening. It was decorated at dinner time so students could attend with sincere opening words of welcome and inclusion by Mayor Clark. Thank you. You all planned and contributed in ways that encouraged the Sammamish kids to participate. It was wonderful. Everyone got the message, and I am grateful. In fact, I was so elated, I will share, for this coming together that I walked home grinning. At one point, I found Lady Gaga on my phone, and I put on Born This Way, and I sang and danced all the way home. If anyone wants to join me for a dance, I'll take it. Then what happened the following evening, we all know. I will not dignify any of the hurtful words by repeating them. Mr. Fayed's comments were so disturbing. He damaged everybody. LGBTQIA who live here, the Muslim community, and all of our neighbors. Because he was appointed and his diatribe followed a code of ethics and training in DEIB, I'm concerned about how he was vetted for this influential job where he shapes our community. What I'm hoping for is a teachable moment for all of us. I know this sounds optimistic, yet I hope we can come together, maybe with Mr. Fayed. I would like an opportunity to tell him how I felt, how our community felt by his damaging comments. Okay, I'm not gonna cry, enough of that. I'd like to engage in a dialogue about his views, which are so counter to our community and the basic tenets of most faiths. We will continue to work towards Sammamish, a place where all are welcome, and we hope to talk to those who disagree because we here, we have open minds, we have extended arms, and we have great big open hearts that we want to share with others. So thank you, City Council, for the work that you do, and may peace be with us.
Thank you. Sandy?
Hi, I'm Sandy Hargraves. I'm the president of the Hidden Ridge Homeowners Association, and I'm here to address traffic concerns in our neighborhood, specifically the 42nd Street barricade. I know you have a traffic continuity plan that you're going to talk about and address later on. And I just want to reiterate that I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years at least. We've had that barricade there open for a number of weeks until it could be repaired. And we noticed a difference in traffic slightly, but still a lot of people not familiar with our neighborhood. I wanted to remind you that there were 49 variances granted by King County to build the road from up above down through Waterbrook and Hidden Ridge. 49. That's incredible. Can't even begin to speculate how that road was ever really built. We've had numerous accidents coming down from the barricade. There's a very sharp left turn, and the way the street is slanted, you can't see the traffic coming up the hill and people cut that corner. Then you go down a very, very steep grade and have to make a 90-degree turn. And we've had several cars that have rolled over into the wetland, and they put up barricades a number of years there railings a number of years ago to stop that. Anyway, I just wanted to reiterate that this has been a very concerning issue for our neighborhood, and we appreciate that. We would appreciate if you could put this to rest and let us know that that barricade will remain in place so no traffic can go through our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
I got to take these off. Steve Christensen, resident since 1987. Mr. Fayyad's views on his DBIB training and the LGBTQ community that he shared with the city during the June 1st Planning Commission meeting was disgraceful. I, as well as others, have discussed the incident with, characterized his personal views as homophobic and hurtful to our whole community. He's free to embrace his opinions in this personal setting, but he was not free to misuse his position as a representative of the city to express his particular brand of homophobia from a position of authority in this very room to all who might hear or view it. His 5.5-minute outburst has amassed, as of 6 o'clock tonight, over 3,476 views on YouTube. Anybody care to guess how many views a normal planning commission gets? It's about 50. Finally, I'm hopeful something can be done to prevent another occurrence. Thanks.
Thank you. Mary?
Hi, good evening. Mary Wichter, Sammamish for 23 years now. I wanted to speak a little bit tonight on traffic and connectivity, since that seems to be a lot of the topics tonight. I live in Tamarack, as you know, and the city of Sammamish, I know you're also looking at purchasing land tonight in your executive session. The city of Sammamish did buy Tract A in Tamarack. It's about 14 acres. He paid over $1 million for it in 2020. I think it was the right thing to do because most of it's in landslide and erosion hazard areas, and I think it'll help George Davis Creek, and I believe that was a very good move. When you purchased that, you became a Tamarack owner and resident. So we do have rules, and one of them is that you own half the road. And on the other side of the road, there are 4 houses that I just reviewed my comments from 2016. And those houses were supposed to get built that summer, and they'd been cleared some years before. That road there connecting Northeast 6th Street to 210th in Tamarack, it's our only north route. It should be a fully capable road. It's on your street x-ray that I got from Doug McIntyre and other people in prior years. I just don't understand why it can't be opened. It looks like the houses are close to being done. I can't really tell the status because my building permit doesn't seem to have that. So I'm asking that maybe somebody could get back to me because I would like to talk about that connection and how we can get it back and do it in the safest way. And I know the native plant stewards are here. I think there's some things growing on the far side, which maybe those should be dealt with. But just, it's an area that's been really derelicted through 4 foreclosures, construction that probably never should have happened, and the city has purchased, and like I know Sammamish Plateau Water and Sewer, they try to be a good neighbor. I think they actually have an official policy for that. So I try to be a good neighbor. I try to advocate for better things. The city owns that parcel. The road has been closed off on. If you can't walk that way for some reason, which you always should be able to, you can't get to like the the churches or to Meade School or to Inglewood Middle School or to Eastlake High School or any of the center areas. It's a whole hour more, or excuse me, a whole mile more of walking. And I know multiple people who live in Tamarack have brought it up to me. They go on their bikes, their kids. There was even a cross-country runner from Eastlake, and he goes, I run cross-country, but I don't want to run around the extra mile. He goes, we need to be able to cut through there. And a lot of people walk their dogs through there. It's a private area from Tamarack, so we go in and out, but it should not ever have been closed off. The stalled construction has been a nightmare. The road needs to get fixed, and I would like somebody to get back to me this week, if possible, at least on the status, so we can talk about ideas about what to do to get that open. So I really appreciate staff and everything they do, but I'd like to make this situation a winner for everybody, regardless of who you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul?
Good evening, City Council members. Paul Stickney, Sammamish. It's been very heartfelt to hear everybody here tonight speak, and to tease Steve, or not to tease Steve, but he's right about how few people watch the Planning Commission meetings. But the last speaker, Mary Wichter, and I have been watching him for nearly 8 years, and we're heavily involved. Mary's involved in stormwater, and I'm involved in getting a housing mix for people to stay over life. So we were on the front line in hearing those comments right then in real time. And we got on the phone and chatted a bit about it, and it really was, to me, I didn't see it coming, what ultimately happened. Maybe I'm too easygoing. I was listening to the comment, and all of a sudden it just went to a very dark place. But I want to talk about something that is not dark. For those of you who do not know me, the council does. I've been working for a long time for getting housing to balance with people's needs and wants within the community, and I call the program Enrich and Sustain to add value to the community. But I've added a third term: enrich, sustain, and stay. And the word stay in Sammamish has many, many meanings. And tonight I'm just going to list a couple of the high points of what it means to stay in Sammamish. It would allow people to stay in the community as housing needs change over life. It would allow people to stay for some services rather than having to leave as often as we do. It would stay car use, hold it down. The word stay has a lot of interesting meanings. It would allow some folks, if we optimize housing and services based on genuine internal needs that are low impact, environmentally friendly, and needed by our community, not to grow for the sake of growth, but to grow for change that adds value to the community, that would allow some people to stay and visit their friends. Stay also means to limit or restrict the types of things that would not be helpful to the community. It means to hinder, suspend, or postpone things that are not advantageous to us that are happening from state and other places. It means to support, to endure, preserve, keep up with. And when we get all those things right, stay means to strut your stuff, and we can all hold our chests up high and figure that we figured out how to do all these things with the word and: enrich, sustain, and stay. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is it Ying for the 42nd barricade? Oh, yeah.
Hello, City Council and Mayor, and my name is Ying Juren. I live in Hidden Ridge together with Sandy, and this is my second time speak in front of you. I came last time. Yeah, so I have two kids, one teenager and one 8 years old. They are biting, so we want a safe neighborhood. So we want my children can live in a safe place. Don't worry about the traffic accident and speeding cars when they're riding in our neighborhood. So children nowadays are very precious for our societies. We need them to support our retirement, right? So please prioritize their needs. Please give them a safe and peaceful neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Todd?
Hi, I'm Todd Langton, lived in Sammamish for 25 years now, and I didn't plan on talking, but I felt kind of a need to add a little bit to this conversation. I cannot express the level of outrage that I felt as I watched and heard that person just, it's hard to express how I felt. Right? It's probably a good thing that I wasn't there to watch it, because I probably would not have been able to maintain a level of professionalism that I think that the rest of the committee members did. And that's one thing that I want to add to this conversation is that from my perspective, what came out of that person's mouth was just so inconceivable, right? That I think there was a sense of shock and disbelief, and you know, people don't know how to deal with a situation in those circumstances. So I think that the members of the commission who were there, I give them grace, because you know, you don't know how you react in that situation. I also would contend that the DEI training worked exactly the way that it's supposed to, because what happened is it triggered in that person his own prejudices in such a way that he had to surface them, right? And so by doing that, by giving him that DEI training and having him have to deal with these issues that he doesn't want to have to deal with, but he has internally, right? That forced him to bring it up and to surface that information and to show the community who he really was. And if you look, it was June 1st when that happened. It's June 5th he resigned. And the city got a statement out, and it was a terrific statement. And this is a horrible situation with a horrible human being who, so anyway, I would just like to say that I'm proud of this city council. I'm proud of the city manager. I'm proud of the members of the commission who were present to that horrible diatribe and remained professional and allowed the process to follow. So, and yes, we need to keep going on it. We can't ever stop, ever. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to speak that didn't get a chance to sign up before council gives their remarks? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just state your name when you get up there. I like your shirt and sandals.
It's Deadpool pride. Hi, my name is Joshua. I've been here for 20 years now. I originally came as a support for about the whole Fayed thing, and I learned a couple of things interesting. That one, that nobody said anything. Two, he was appointed. So the first thing I've heard is, I'm going to disagree with the gentleman before me. I think it's a very sad act of cowardness to not say things, to not stand up to something. What was it? It just seems that, you know, what action should be taken. And I think there's a lot of actions that can be taken. And I don't mean physical or violence, I mean, but there are lots of things you can do to let people know that this isn't right, that this is not what you should do. Anybody who knows me will know that I have absolutely no faith in government in any shape or form. So, and he has done that. And I say that because today we have a lot of people here. This is a very hot topic. I assume you will just weather the storm and wait for this to pass and do nothing. That's what I expect of all of you, is to do nothing just ride out the storm. And I would hope that you guys can change my opinion of government by taking action. I'm not even going to prescribe what that action should be. I just want to remind you that all that's required for evil to win is good to do nothing. Good night.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak? All righty.
We also have the online commenters.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. That's great, yeah.
If you wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand. If you wish to speak regarding a public hearing, please do not raise your hand at this time. They will be held later in the meeting. If you're calling by phone, press *9. Carrie Bosworth.
Hi, good evening. I was worried you wouldn't get to us. My name is Carrie Bosworth, and I am a Sammamish resident. I regret that I cannot be there in person tonight. I am one of your planning commissioners at the meeting last week. Tonight, I'm providing personal public comment. I support and value our LGBTQIA+ community with all my heart. You fill my life with joy and love. What inspires me most by this community is your courage to be your most authentic self. I am in shock, just as you are, that while my thoughts were running a mile a minute, my voice was not. Therefore, I want to acknowledge that moment. May our voices never be absent again. My actions immediately after the meeting remain consistent with how I respond to hateful words and actions. I approached Wasim Fayed and expressed my disappointment and stood up for the people in the LGBTQIA+ community that I know and don't know. I appreciate the person who stood close by quietly in the dark, providing his solidarity. I appreciate how the city worked quickly to upload the meeting with a disclaimer, and for city council members who took my calls and emails to take additional action. Thank you to everyone who came out tonight and for this time to speak.
Thank you.
Sid Gupta.
Hi, Sid Gupta. I am a Parks and Recreation Commissioner for the City of Sammamish, but I'm here tonight as a private resident. I'm sorry I couldn't make it in person, but I wanted to thank the council for its statement and for accepting the resignation of Mr. Fayed. I'm heartened to see the outpouring of support in council chambers. It was very difficult hearing the comments that were made, but it was wonderful to see the community come together for our Pride event. It was very uplifting. Everything was very genuine. And again, here tonight, all these organizations, all these people who do such good work in connecting all of us. Thank you for being here. This is what makes our community great. And quickly, I just wanted to congratulate my fellow stewards on 12 years of wildlife habitat certification. Sammamish does an exemplary job of supporting its volunteers, and I look forward to seeing what we can all accomplish together with the advent of our climate action plan. Thank you.
Hello, hi, this is Surabhi here. Can you hear me? I'm so sorry, I can't tell.
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. This is Surabhi here. I'm a resident of Hidden Ridge. I am here to talk about the 42nd Street barricade. But listening to everybody here today, I just wanted to say thank you to the city of Sammamish for taking such quick action. And I do, regarding Mr. Fayed's comments, and I do also hope that there would be more training, that everybody understands the importance of diversity and inclusion, but more often, I am a person of color, but I've realized more often than not, everybody understands it, everybody talks about it, but when it comes to key critical decisions and times, it's forgotten or it just kind of it's slipped out and then people's biases come out there. So I really do appreciate what the city has done, but yes, a little more, I think it would be great for the other panelists to have voiced their comments or their thoughts at the same time, right when Mr. Fayed was making his comments, so they would have stopped him from continuing his diatribe and making it so hurtful to a huge, larger community. That's the first point. The second point is regarding the 42nd Street barricade. It connects 3 communities, Timberline, Waterbrook, and Hidden Ridge. There are 3 communities with kids out here, families who live together. So one, it is a huge security concern because we've had a lot of thefts happening within the area, within the houses here, and we do believe that this could lead to a larger rise. 2, kids are playing out there on the street. The entire lane, the way it has been constructed and built, it is very steep and it has had a lot of accidents. I think the state patrol has done an analysis and has come up with the fact that it does have a lot of accidents. So if you could probably look into a lot more into that analysis, and please ensure that the lane stays closed for sure, and it's not something that is left for conversations year on year, because as far as I understand, this has been in conversation for at least 20 years now. So I would super appreciate a clear decision and closure on this to keep the 42nd Street barricade closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no additional online commenters. Back to you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So at this moment, before we move on, Council would like to take a personal point of privilege. I hope everyone feels comfortable or would like to make comments on what happened on June 1st, the first day of Pride Month. So I'm going to kick this one off for obvious reasons, if that's okay. So as the first out LGBTQIA+ elected council member and mayor of Sammamish, I feel empowered by the absolute solidarity and outpouring of support in this community, my community. To our youth, hate has no place here. To all of our residents, our city staff, leadership, and our volunteers, hate has no place here. It is times like these where not only do I see how far we have come, but how much work we still have left to do. I really want to thank all of you for being here. Like I said, I don't even know what to say. I am floored. I'm not often speechless. I think most of you probably know that. I just really appreciate the support, and yeah, we have a lot of work to do. So thank you all. And if you all right, I'll just go in order as you light up here. Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to read this because I'll probably forget everything I need to say if I don't read it. I just want to start by saying I wholeheartedly reject the views that were expressed in this chamber last Thursday night. As a public official, it's our job to reflect and represent all of our community and to bring people together. I'm completely heartened by the outpouring of support for our LGBTQ community and the the unbelievable amount of emails that we received from the community. So I'm assuming not everybody could be here tonight. So I want to thank you so much for showing up for this. I also appreciate and welcome the remarks that were made by our Sammamish Muslim Association. Thank you for your thoughtful response. So as they say, when you know better, you do better. Obviously, we need further training on how to manage a meeting when such a situation arises. Both council and commissions could benefit greatly from this. This is also an opportunity to further encourage our community to continue to engage with your city council and with your commissions and to continue to give us your feedback. Because Sammamish is not just a place where we sleep, it is where we belong. And so thank you for coming and speaking up tonight is really, really appreciated. Thank you.
Councilmember Inapure.
Thank you, Mayor. Today, I want to denounce the destructive power of hate speech, particularly when it is targeted at the LGBTQIA+ community. At this moment, I want to emphasize our support for all people, especially those who face discrimination due to their sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. You have the right to exist, thrive, and be your beautiful self. Statistics reveal a stark reality that we must confront. LGBTQIA+ individuals continue to face significant challenges in employment and personal security. According to recent studies, a staggering 66% of LGBTQI employees are closeted at work, fearing the repercussions of being open about their true selves. This denial of their identity not only erodes the mental well-being, but also stifles their ability to fully contribute and thrive in their workplace. LGBTQIA+ people are continuously burdened to undertake immense emotional and physical labor in the service to educating others. There is also a disproportionate expectation to make others feel comfortable in their presence or in social situations. Every act of hate speech or violence against someone because of their sexual orientation or gender identity is an assault on the fundamental principles of equality and human rights. Yet, in this face of hate, I implore each and every one of us to respond with steadfast commitment to respect and tolerance. It is important to remember that hate cannot drive out hate. Only love and understanding have the power to do so. To create a more inclusive society, we must address the root cause of hate speech and discrimination. Education and awareness play a crucial role in dismantling the stereotypes and misconceptions that perpetuate prejudice. By fostering dialogue, empathy, and understanding, we can build bridges of acceptance. The city of Sammamish has made it a goal to become a more inclusive city by embracing diversity in all its forms. While I loudly condemn hateful statements made on this podium a few days ago, I pledge to be a strong ally of all BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ communities. In that, I pledge to seek that I will continuously educate myself, listen and amplify voices, show respect and acceptance by using correct pronouns, and avoid making assumptions. I will also speak up when I witness or encounter harmful language, stereotypes, and misconceptions. I pledge to be an ally in all spaces, whether it's home, work, school, or within social circles. I pledge to create a safe and non-judgmental environment for LGBTQIA+ individuals to share their experience and concerns, be open to learning and growing, even if it means acknowledging and unlearning any biases I might have. And lastly, I will use my voice to advocate for inclusive laws, policies, and practices in my community. Pride Month serves as a powerful reminder that love knows no bounds and every human being deserves dignity, respect, and equal rights. It is a testament to the strength and resilience of the LGBTQIA+ community, a community that has weathered storms, emerged stronger, more vibrant, and more determined than before. Lastly, I want to thank the larger community. Over the past few days, the people of Sammamish have clearly demonstrated that hate and discrimination has no place in this city. And as a council member, I will strive to ensure that each resident feels like they belong here. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for being here this evening. We have received so many emails in the last couple of days, and like many of you, I also condemn the words used by Commissioner Fayed. Those words do not reflect our city leadership or who we are as council members. While I am not part of the LGBTQ plus community, as an Asian American woman, I do know what it feels like to be targeted, to be marginalized, to be afraid, and to be stereotyped, and it doesn't feel good. And this was the reason I supported adding the DEIB program to our city work plan last year, because I wanted to ensure that inclusion is a part of everything we do as council, from our hiring practices to the policies we create to how we treat each other. Unfortunately, this incident reminds us how much work we have to do, but it also forces us to be more firmly committed to the values we hold as a community. We have also received public comment that the other commissioners didn't say anything while the situation unfolded. We have received apologies from many of the planning commissioners, and I appreciate them. I understand that in the moment, we may not know what to do. We are shocked, and we question if we should speak up. And so, by default, we don't do anything. In other places, not here on the dais, I have been called racist names, and I have not said anything. It has taken me years to speak up, because in that moment, you don't know what to do. So I do give the commissioners grace in this situation. I do want to assure the public that we will be receiving further guidance so that in the future, we will all be better prepared. Thank you.
Councilmember Howe.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your public comment. I could read your hearts as much as I could read your minds and listen to every word you guys said. And I know where it comes from. It comes from the good place, the really good place. And for that, we are so fortunate to have you, because this was a gut punch. This hit us, all of us, in a physical way that I think took our collective breath away. And what this has also done is brought you all together. So in a weird way, this horrible thing brought intelligent, like-minded people together to share and commiserate and to say, okay, so that was awful. How do we get past it? And not just past, how do we do better? How do we be better? How does it not happen again? There was something we used to do with goalies in lacrosse, is you'd take somebody with a face mask and you hit them in the face with the ball until they stop blinking. And in a way, I think we kind of need that to just stop blinking. It really did happen. We have to take the breath and take the plunge and risk being wrong and saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to just be, to err on the side of the right side and to frankly get better and to learn better. What can we do better for the person that doesn't believe in government? I get that part. What we could do better, frankly, is we could do a better job interviewing our commissioners and ask the tough questions and look for the really good responses and get closer to your heart. How do we understand you as a person? These are tough questions, and they're behavioral, and they're tricky, and they're difficult. You guys are smart. You'll get that. You'll be great at that. I want to do things in such a way, though, that you're not afraid to come up for public service. These commissioners are volunteers. They donate their time to the city to try to make the city a better place. And so I don't want to make it scary for people, but to that end, I do think the education and training, yeah, and I think we'll just throw some balls in your face for a minute, and then you'll stop blinking. The same here, by the way, because we blinked in the face of ignorance. That's what it really was, I think, was ignorance. And I'll say something about the DEIB training that we had. I've had a lot because I've had to for different roles I've had. This was DEIB 101. I I don't blame the person who gave that training at all. I think she did an excellent job. And it was gentle, and it was inviting and introductory, and to get people kind of moving and thinking. And as many times as I've taken different kinds of trainings like this, I learned something about it every time, about myself. And this is what I think Mr. Fayed needs to learn, if he could listen to this for just a moment. You've lost so much goodwill in this community. You're going to have to earn it back. You need to. You have a business here. Wow. Okay, so for the next 10 minutes, you have a business here. And you can earn this back. Sign yourself up for DEIB training. You better take a class, and then maybe another one, and maybe even another one after that. If you can't find a good class, we will help you find one, because we actually want engaged, intelligent people as part of this community. No one is beyond redemption. There's some that are testing it, however. And so with that, I'll bring up Todd's comment about grace for the commissioners. Please, grace. Grace for them. They deserve it. I can't tell you how brokenhearted they are. Thank you.
Councilmember Treen.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Thank you to all who are in attendance and those viewing. My first response to this incident was to communicate with the mayor to let her know that she is supported and that she is loved. I also communicated with the planning commissioner, and that was to gain the knowledge of the incident from an eyewitness. My communication now is to the residents of Sammamish. I want you to know that I care about you and I support you. So I have two asks going forward. Number one, that we, the council and the staff, work together to improve the DEIB training. Second ask is that the city council and the staff work together to improve the process of selecting members of boards, commissions, task force, and any other appointed positions. I want to drive this point home, and I just want to restate what I just said for its importance. The ask is that the city of Sammamish will be a better place if we, the council, do the hard work of improving our DEIB training and work to improve the process when we select volunteers to serve on boards, commissions, task force, committees, and other positions in the city. And that these representatives, these volunteers, represent the values of the city of Sammamish. And with that, I stand with the mayor and support you and let you know that you're loved. I do care. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you, Kent. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, thank you. First, I was asked by Mo Luckman if I could read the statement from the Sammamish Muslim Association, so I'm going to start with that. The Sammamish Muslim Association is deeply troubled by the offensive comments made by a planning commissioner about another marginalized group during the June 1st Planning Commission meeting. That individual's words were harmful and are not representative of our association or the wider Muslim community in Sammamish and beyond. Despite his resignation and apology, we write to clarify that our diverse Muslim community and Islamic faith do not condone his language or behavior. The religion of Islam is a religion of mercy that teaches kindness, compassion, and treatment of all human beings with dignity. While we respect individual freedom of speech and religious belief, we believe in the responsibility of public officials to represent all constituents impartially. We condemn harmful rhetoric that targets minority groups and urge those with public platforms to avoid divisive language. We further are heartbroken by and can empathize with the pain caused by the comments as we share a common experience of marginalization. Hopefully, this incident can serve as an opportunity for community learning, fostering respect, tolerance, and dignity. We look forward to collaborating with you to ensure Sammamish remains a safe haven for all. So I just want to thank the Sammamish Muslim Association for pulling that together. And now, first, Josh, I want to prove you wrong. So I'm going to work really hard to do that. Diversity and difference should never lead to disinformation, disparaging, or dehumanization of others. And I just want to say to the LGBTQIA plus community and really anyone out there that needs to hear this, I see you, I embrace you, and I love what you bring to the world. Thank you for being you. You know, as a parent, like I don't know how this makes anyone feel, those comments that they were directed at. I can try to empathize, but I don't really know how that makes you feel. But I can tell you that as a parent, when someone goes after your kid, there's a special nerve that it's just really hard. And so I'm trying to take that feeling and direct it to something positive. So I would like to end with some positive and some inspiration. So I'm going to quote the end of Amanda Gorman's poem, "The Hill We Climb." "When day comes, we step out of this shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if we are brave enough to see it, if we are brave enough to be it." Thank you all for being here.
I think we could do a 10-minute break, if that's all right, just a collective breath together, and just to say hi to you all. So we'll be back at 7:48, and then we'll head to the rest of our agenda. Thank you. All right. As council gets back to their seat.
Hopefully everybody will stay now.
Yeah. We do have executive session up next. I think we are anticipating an hour. We do have 3 different topics. So the first one is RCW 42.30.1110(1)B, land acquisition. The second is RCW 42.30.1110(1)I, potential litigation. And the last one is pending litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1110(1)I, and council may take action on that one. So we're starting with an hour, I believe. So we will be back at 8:50. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Next up we have our consent calendar. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve that.
So moved.
All right, any questions? I think everyone's thing is still lit up, probably from earlier, but no, you're good. I just want to make sure. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we have our special recognition. So Russell, are you doing this?
I can, but I think it would be better if you did.
Would it?
I think, unless you don't know what you're talking about.
No, I do.
Okay.
I donated to this before. I know I did.
Then you know, then you are the right person.
Okay. Do you want to give the background, though? Because I only have this in front of me.
I would love to give you some background.
Yes,
So,
because Councilmember Howe did bring this to us, so, yeah.
every once in a while, we get some exceptional young people in Sammamish, and we have more of them than we know. And I'm hoping that by recognizing you, Russell, now, that will encourage others to come forward with the great work that they've been doing in Sammamish as well. But you are a phenomenal young man, and you have done some amazing work that you just decided on your own that, what age was it? Was it 5 or 6 that you decided instead of birthday presents, you were going to help others? And you've been doing it every year since then, which is astounding. And every year, Mom has had to clear out her house, build a wall of diapers, wipes, and formula for others. And your mountain keeps growing and growing and growing, just as you have, because you're super tall now.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to read this out loud, and then if we could get a photo with all of us, if you're good with that. Okay, so special recognition. This acknowledges that Russell Bennett has been recognized for outstanding community service with donations to LifeWire. He has been running a drive on his birthday since he was 5 years old. This year he has garnered 25,000 diapers and baby wipes and over $2,000 in donations. So on behalf of the city, we really thank you and your commitment to, really, our community. So thank you.
Is that okay? Okay. All right. So I'm time limited. All right. I just wanted to thank everyone for recognizing my efforts, and thank you, Karen, for bringing this here. This drive means the world to me, and I couldn't have done this without my amazing mother, Sunday. I also couldn't have done this without all the people who donated diapers and wipes or money, and we ended up having 32,436 diapers and wipes total this year, which is pretty crazy. And it all went to LifeWire, which is a domestic violence shelter. And domestic violence is a serious issue, and they help resolve it and get people out of those situations. And I'm glad to see them making so much change. So yeah, thank you for the award.
Where do you go to school?
Currently, I go to school at Lake Washington Tech.
Awesome. Very cool. You'll be here soon in these seats. That's so cool. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, we should post that on our Facebook page. Social media.
Yes, we could.
That would be fun. Show everybody what it can be done.
We're good. Nope. Okay. Okay, so thank you again, and thank you all for coming. So next up, we do have a Ride Transit Month. I'm not sure if anyone wants to read this, or I can. Oh, you got it? Yeah.
No, I was pointing to the deputy mayor.
Oh, Deputy Mayor Lamb.
Oh, are you sure? Okay. I am proclaiming June 2023 Ride Transit Month. Whereas having reliable transportation can be a major key toward developing a thriving community, and whereas almost 25% of Washington residents cannot and do not drive and may rely on public transit, and whereas regional transit agencies and transportation organizations are proclaiming June as Ride Transit Month to promote alternatives to driving, and whereas transportation organizations are engaging with drivers, riders, and communities to increase accessibility and equity in transit use, policies, and system design, and whereas using public transit rather than other modes of transportation conserved equivalent to 63 million metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2018, roughly the same savings as taking 16 coal-fired power plants offline for a year. And whereas Ride Transit Month celebrates public transportation system and transit riders, showcases the benefits of riding transit, and encourages the community to try transit, and whereas a transit fair will be held at the Farmers Market in the City Hall Plaza on June 14th in partnership with regional transit agencies to educate and provide transportation resources to the Sammamish community. And whereas developing transit-oriented communities have been shown to enhance health and community connectedness, reduce pollution, and improve traffic safety and circulation, now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor Kaylee Clark, on behalf of the Sammamish City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2023 as Ride Transit Month, and want to encourage our residents to observe this month with events and activities to promote public transportation, and above all, to ride transit, to make a commitment maybe to just ride once this month. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and thank you for bringing this forward. All right, next up, we have David Pyle, Monthly Council Projects Update, Comp Plan, Housing Action Plan, Climate Action Plan.
Great. Good evening, Mayor, Council. David Pyle, Department of Community Development. I'm here tonight for your 7th status update on major planning projects in the city. And I will also note as I start this that I have been talking to Audrey Starcy in Public Works, and we're going to try to find a way to integrate some other department updates with these as well, so you could start to see how all the dates fit together. We think that's a really important improvement, and we'll be working on that for the next cycle, which will come to you in July. As you can see, we are quite busy. Over the next few months, there will continue to be many meetings on the Comprehensive Plan, Climate Action Plan, and we are also adding new work on economic development and soon critical areas. I've listed the scheduled meetings here through the end of July, although keep in mind there could be meetings added or changed as we continue our efforts on these planning projects. Please also note that there is a lot of background work you don't see here. Staff continue to be very busy keeping these projects on track, and we have been down one key staff position with Sarah Asteri's departure last month to King County. For the comprehensive plan, we are continuing with outreach efforts, which will continue into the summer and fall. We also continue to evaluate how recent state legislation affects our work plan and update process. It seems we learn something new about this bundle of legislation almost daily. We also continue to work on housing and land use strategies, and we are now working on the development of background information for the new economic development chapter. Finally, we continue to meet with the city's service providers and are now scheduling meetings with the builders, both market and affordable builders. So we're really looking forward to learning more about what we can do in order to ensure that policies we put in place are actually ones that will deliver the housing types that the state is asking us to provide, and also that the community needs to respond to local need. Here you can see public meetings related to the comprehensive plan for June and July. As you can see, a majority of our meetings are related to the comprehensive plan for this time period. We've got a lot of background work going on related to review of the different elements. We're really starting to see it come together, and we're looking forward to eventually having a rough draft for your review, which is quite a ways out, but it is on the horizon now. For the Climate Action Plan, our focus is on finalizing the grant-funded greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled reduction strategies, advancement of work with the Community Advisory Group, review of neighbor cities' plans, and continuing to work on development of the community module of the plan. While we are on the slide, I wanted to make sure we remind everyone watching that the community baseline profile and GHG VMT reduction strategies due for final council consideration later this evening are due to the Department of Commerce in June of 2023. And it's June 6th, so it's June right now. Here you see public meetings related to work on the Climate Action Plan for June and July. I do want to highlight for you that we will be having a farmers market booth at the market tomorrow. That will be staffed by members of the Community Advisory Group, as well as some assistance by staff, as we have a comprehensive plan booth adjacent to it, so we'll be able to help them with anything they need. We also have another booth on the 14th. I'll be at that booth and helping out, so looking forward to that. And we will continue to assess whether that was a successful endeavor and we should keep up with that. We've only tentatively planned these first two. However, we can keep adding dates if it is successful. For the Housing Diversification Toolkit, our current focus is on City Council holding a public hearing, potentially adopting the HDT by resolution, possibly this evening. While we are on this slide, I wanted to make sure to remind everyone that a final adopted Housing Diversification Toolkit is due to the Department of Commerce in June of 23, just like the VMT GHG work. Once approved by the city, staff will switch gears to transmit the adopted document to Commerce and work on integrating it into the comprehensive plan update process, where additional work will continue on the topic of housing as part of the comprehensive plan update. Here you see our final meeting on the Housing Diversification Toolkit. Again, if adopted by resolution tonight, this work will be integrated into the comprehensive plan update as the foundation for the housing element, and we will keep working on the topic. And again, as previously presented, this is on the horizon. We have a new project, an update of our critical areas rules. We did hear some testimony this evening in public comment from an individual who was interested in habitat. And I'm happy to say that one of the primary components of the update cycle will be studying habitat and how development regulations can help improve habitat connectedness across the landscape. And we'll be looking at past rule sets going back to King County, looking at the different generations of rules related to habitat and the current rules that we have and how those can be improved. So we're looking forward to that work. And with it, that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Napure?
I just had a quick comment. I think you had a booth on May 31st for the economic plan, our development plan, and I think that was so popular. And Kelly did a fantastic job engaging with everybody, answering everybody's questions. So thank you so much for doing that. That was fun.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. And it's a topic we look forward to learning more about from the community on many different channels. So looking forward to keep working on that and all the other elements of the comp plan.
Great, David. So I do not see any other hands, but I know you have more later, so.
I'll be here.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, so next up, we do have our public hearing, and I think Audrey will be coming on. So I assume that Audrey has a presentation before I open this up, but I'll wait to ask. Hello, Audrey.
Hi, good evening, Mayor. Deputy Mayor and Council. Before we get started, we do have a quick presentation by our Senior Transportation Planning Manager, Doug McIntyre, and our Transportation Planner, Lindsay Channing. They'll provide a quick overview on some changes for our 2024 through 2029 Transportation Improvement Plan, or TIP. And we have made a few changes as noted in the agenda bill, and we'll just quickly go over those before we open the public hearing. Doug and Lindsay, whenever you are ready, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Council. And Audrey, I appreciate it. Let me start our PowerPoint. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we are excited to bring forward to you our final draft of the 2024-2029 Transportation Improvement Plan for public hearing and feedback. Just by way of a quick overview, we do recognize that this meeting is a hefty one this evening, and so we are trying to keep our presentation abbreviated, but we're happy to elaborate on any questions that you may have. So please let us know if you would like additional information at any point in time. But we're going to give a very brief overview and background kind of reminder of where we're at and why we do the TIP. A review of the minor changes, modifications that we made since the workshop with Council on May 16th, and then what our next steps are in the process. And then we'd ask that you'd open the public hearing, and then we'll close with Council discussion this evening. So again, the purpose of tonight is to receive public feedback and testimony and to review the updated final draft of our 2024-2029 TIP. By way of background, all cities in the state of Washington are required to adopt a 6-year comprehensive transportation improvement plan pursuant to RCW. We do this on an annual basis. It is to be consistent with a comprehensive plan, which our TIP is. It also informs the city budget. However, it's important to keep in mind that it is not an actual budget and it is a plan for our transportation projects. Also, just as transparency purposes, our most current TIP was adopted in July of 2022, and that was for the 6-year time period of 2023 to 2028. This year, we categorized our projects a little bit differently, and we went over this in detail last time I was before you, but the categories include citywide programs, traffic safety and non-motorized projects, connection projects, corridor projects, and regional projects. Some of the brief highlights of the minor modifications that we made, and I do want to let everyone know, council and the public, that we did give a detailed bulleted list in our agenda bill this evening in the packet on all of the minor changes that were made, but the ones that we wanted to call out specifically were that we added the sidewalk program list of projects, and we added their sorted priority order. So that is a table that was included as Exhibit 2 in the agenda report. It's also in Exhibit 3, which I'll get to here in just a moment. We added funding for the Englewood Hill Road Sidewalk Gap Project, which is TR 108. This provided consistency with previous project funding. This project was lumped into the general sidewalk program, and we've now brought it forward as a standalone project in the TIP. We also added a column in the spreadsheet to indicate the funding level for our projects and programs, to indicate whether they're funded, partially funded, or unfunded. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out that we have created a new document to supplement our TIP, and that's called the Funded Program and Project Guide. It provides further details on the programs and projects that are proposed to be funded through this 2024-2029 TIP. And within this program and project guide, we've also included the sidewalk program list and priority order criteria. So you have that in 2 different locations within the agenda packet this evening, and that was Exhibit 3. This is our final draft 2024-2029 TIP. I do recognize that this is not legible for anyone viewing the screen at the moment, and we will bring this up momentarily where you can actually see it at the end of our presentation. But again, this is Exhibit 1 in the agenda packet as well. This is just the cover page of that funded program and project guide that I had just mentioned, so that everyone knows what it looks like. I'm happy to bring this up as well if council would like me to, and it was included as Exhibit 3 in the agenda bill as previously mentioned. Our next steps after the public hearing has been completed, we anticipate bringing this back to council at your regular meeting on June 20th for adoption of the TIP. Following this meeting, we'll go back and make any edits to this final draft if needed. Reminder that we do need the majority direction for any changes that we would make to this draft document. And then again, adoption of it at the June 20th meeting. And then our last step in this process for the year is to ensure that we transmit it to WSDOT after it's been adopted. And that needs to be sent to them by July 1st of this year. So with that, I'd like to move on to answer any clarifying questions that council may have. At this time, I'm happy to open up the spreadsheet if you would like me to, and then ask that you open the public hearing. That concludes my presentation at this time.
Great. So if I heard you correctly, we're going to have council ask questions, discuss, then open the public hearing. And is that for 2 weeks it will be open?
That's typically the way council has done it. It is at your discretion.
Okay, cool. But you guys will be back the 20th anyways.
We
All righty. All right, council, do you have any questions initially before we open the public hearing? Yeah, okay, Deputy Mayor Lamb. I was like, this is not normal. Yeah, okay.
So thank you, Audrey, for giving feedback on all my questions. Thank you for that. I had a few questions actually. So I know this, and you said this isn't a budget and it forms the budget. But one thing that I wasn't clear on when I looked at last year's TIP, and gosh, I keep bringing this up, sidewalks again, and I apologize, but last year it was at least $1 million a year. And this year it's 200,000. And last year there was a chart that showed potential cash flow, and it was like $80 million. And that included things like the stormwater utility tax. And this year, the revenue assumptions is 32 million. So there's a big difference between 80 million and 32 million. And we're not looking at this apples to apples because there's different things in the different revenue assumptions. So I guess my question is, why did we change how we calculate things, or why is this spreadsheet different than last year? It's hard to evaluate this TIP when the numbers are so jarringly different than last year's.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I'm happy to start. And Doug and Lindsay, please add to my response. But we did try to change the TIP this year with the intent that it would be a little bit more transparent to the community, so that it's easy to read, easy to process. That's why we also put together that project and program guide. We're also working on a GIS map that'll be an interactive map for the community to see exactly what we're working on. In terms of the revenue sources itself, the sidewalk program in last year's TIP, if you were to look over to the right-hand columns where it says the revenue sources, where it defines those, you might see a column, I forgot what it ended up being named, but it was an unnamed revenue source, made up a majority of that sidewalk program funding. In other words, we did not have secured revenue for that program, other than the $100,000 per year. And then the other differences between last year's TIP and this year's TIP is we're assuming the basic revenue assumptions have stayed the same for the most part. This year's TIP, we are entirely relying on REIT and TIP. We have not included any general fund dollars to this year's TIP. We have assumed up to a 20% allocation from the stormwater, the 438 fund as needed for appropriate projects. So that is shown in one of the columns for this year's TIP. But the numbers that are shown in the 6-year windows, we just wanted to focus on the amounts that would be expended from the 340 fund.
Okay.
Yes.
I may need further clarification via email.
That's fine. I'm happy to follow up.
I've been seeing you guys talk about long-range system completion. What exactly is the goal of that?
I can speak to that. Or Audrey.
Go ahead. No, that's fine.
Okay. So that is a plan that we've talked about for a little over a year now. The idea with that is that it's a longer term capital planning document. So we know that this is a 6-year plan and that can only cover so much. And we know that there's a need out there in the community to invest in the transportation system that's beyond that. And so it'd be looking at really what does it take to get us to where we need to be over 20 plus years. It will also be a much more strategic document. So we'll talk about how we plan to finish out the system. As you all know, we have a pretty rural road system in some areas of the city. And so we need to identify what the strategy is to bring those to urban standards. In addition to that, we want to look at more financial strategies, and that's kind of, I think, what your first question kind of indicated, that the difference between the last TIP and this year's TIP, looking at some of the financial assumptions, the revenue assumptions, they're different. And I think that, in addition to what Audrey said, it's more realistic this year. We're taking a much more reasonable approach. I think last year, for a little more context, the sidewalk program was a late addition, and so we didn't have the ability to basically look at how that funding would play as a whole, impact the whole picture of the capital plan. So we had an unnamed and unsecured source of revenue that was allocated to that sidewalk program. So that was about 17.4 million, I think, is what we looked at. And we were also relying on general fund dollars. So this year we're not doing that. It's a much more realistic TIP. And so with that, I think the long range system completion plan is our way to do a better job of understanding what are the financial strategies that we can look at to help us build out the system, not only in the 6 years, but also 20 years and beyond. So it's going to be a really important document. It's going to feed into our capital facilities plan, which is an element of the comprehensive plan. And it's all going to come together in that comprehensive plan update of the plan.
Okay. So we will eventually see, say, 10 years, this is what the plan, this is what we envision for the plan, right? And then another 5, okay.
Exactly.
And just to add on to that, once we have a really well-rounded 20-year plan, essentially the 6-year TIP becomes a very, very easy process. It's just a sliding window, right? We have our priorities. We have, by this time next year, we'll have completed a long-range system completion plan. So we have identified some potential revenue sources that the city could look to. And so we have a really great look ahead for the next 20 years for our transportation projects, as well as, like I said, revenue that we could utilize to complete those projects. So the TIP essentially just becomes a sliding window of every 6 years along that longer plan.
Okay. I saw a mention of having an updated concurrency model somewhere in your in the addition to the agenda. It was added. There was some mention of that, and I wasn't sure what that meant. Is that something you guys are working on right now?
Yes, it's happening through our comprehensive plan update work. So as part of our transportation element, we are updating all the modeling to reflect the current situation using current traffic counts and current land use assumptions, and then building the model around that work to feed into the comprehensive plan work. So we have multiple models, and we're updating all of them.
Okay. And my last question is on TR 18. And again, this kind of goes back to sidewalks again. There has to be some way that we can put sidewalks or some interim solution on TR 18, which is Southeast 8th and 218th, right by Beaton Hill. I mean, I see people walking on the street, and I do believe it's a safety issue. And I'm looking at Issaquah, I'm looking at TR02, and now it's funded in 2029, where there was no funding before. So, I mean, I would like to move money around. I don't even know how to start this thing, but I just don't see how we can have a park and we're going to work on a master plan for Beaton Hill. And people are already walking on the streets, and the expectation is that people will continue on walking on the streets for the next 6 years. And I think in one of the last council meetings, Councilmember Stewart asked about putting in some kind of gravel path, and I think the response was, well, that's not good for stormwater, and we need to put in gutters and all of that. But like I said, I just don't see how we can have people walking on the streets for the next 6 years.
one option, I guess, for council to consider. We can certainly go back and look at the projects, but just I think we did talk about this in one of our May meetings, but look at some temporary measures. As you mentioned, the gravel still does typically require some stormwater review. It requires utility locations often, and some grading. So there is some work to be done. But the general scope of Tier 18 is much larger in nature. We did begin a corridor study for that project a few years ago, and the scope is actually widening the road and adding many other amenities. So that's why that project is in that connections category. I'm sorry, the corridor category.
It is also our understanding that through the development of the Beaton Hill Park, that the city itself will have to adhere to our own standards to build those front-end improvements for that property. So while it might not be the full corridor, it will be a part of that corridor.
So what does all that mean? Like, what can we do in the next 3 years?
Maybe Anjali can help us. Yeah, if you have some input for Beaton Hill.
Good evening, Council. For the record, I'm Anjali Maya, Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities. So the master plan for Beaton Hill and Big Rock Park has not yet been adopted by City Council. We are also in the process of updating our 6-year Parks, Recreation and Open Space Plan. And as part of that, Council will decide your priorities and which park and which project you want to go in first. And like you're seeing with the TIP, there isn't enough dollars to build every project. And so once those priorities are set, this, if Beaton Hill rises to the top, that is the first project that we would undertake. However, it takes a year or two to go through design and construction, and we could make those frontage improvements happen as part of the project.
Okay. People are already using Big Rock Park, so this is, current situation, at least the way I see it. So I don't know if any other council members feel the same way, but I really would like to see something done on those 2 roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the one I always walk down to get to Big Rock. Yeah, it's super dangerous, but I don't know what to do. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you guys. I do love, after the last meeting, how you've kind of broken up the projects to make it more readable, because when it's just one big giant spreadsheet, it can be really overwhelming. So appreciate that. I also appreciate that, last year and this year, you're kind of playing catch up since we didn't update it for a couple of years. So I think this is great. My bigger question, because I know this is, I think even you guys use the term, it's sort of an interim or a stepping stone tip as you guys are working on the comp plan update. So I guess my bigger question is we've come up with a prioritization strategy, but that's really not intended for sort of that interim period. Are there any other projects that you feel like we need to do studies on to help inform the comp plan update and that system completion update? Because that's to me, right, so important that we have all of the data that we need so that we can come up with whatever we're going to call it, whether it's, I still get confused, like it's in the comp plan and it's a system completion plan, but to have a master plan that says, here is how we are going to move people around the city and in and out of the city. And again, as we look at, while things might still be delayed, in planning terms, right, how are we going to move people to Marymore Park and use transit, right? It's Transit Appreciation Month. How are we going to do all of these things? How are we going to create those safe walkways? How are we, as we, I had the interesting, a very long day. I was at UW today watching the capstone presentation from the Civil Engineering Department, where they did a whole project in downtown Seattle for the 45th Street corridor. And they had a lot of, now I lost the term, but like little transportation stations, right, where you can have e-bikes and scooters and a place to lock up your bikes. And they had a lot of these different things. So every one of their projects that they had, they made sure that there were strategic locations where people could get that additional transportation, the last mile, if you will. So, you know, I want to make sure that this tip for the next year has all of the projects and studies that you need to be able to inform that master plan, because we got to get that right? We really have to. So is there anything that you feel like, based on our prioritization strategy, we might have missed because it didn't really kind of get caught by that you would like to have in the next year or two? Probably a year.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Stewart, for the question. That's a great question. I would add that I think the biggest planning efforts are already underway, right? We already talked about our long-range system completion plan, our transit plan as well underway. That'll help us determine where transit can be improved throughout the community. Sahali, the corridor study, will be a very vital study for us to complete, and that's on track to begin and hopefully be completed in 2024. So that'll be very important, and those are all kind of running parallel efforts at the time. I think we've done a very good job of trying to think of this tip as a bridge year, but it's also a very important next year and a half of planning work. So Doug, Lindsay, if I missed anything, please add.
No, I think you definitely covered all of it. I would maybe add, maybe more specifically, Councilmember Stewart, and maybe kind of combining Deputy Mayor Lamb's comments as well, that, you know, if there is a study of that corridor, the TR18 project, that could be helpful, you know, going forward. We have done a lot of that work already. Our CIP team had started that back in, I believe, 2019, and it got paused in, I believe, 2020 or 2021. And so we have a partially completed study. So that is one area where, you know, that could illuminate some answers for us. However, there's a cost associated with that. We don't know what that would look like, and we'd have to figure out how to fit that into the constrained revenue picture. But, you know, that would be kind of a specific answer to that question.
Okay. With regard to TR18, I'm wondering if we should split it apart, because those two streets, right, Southeast 8th is really very separate from, you know, what you were talking about in front of Beaton Hill. Now, I think they both need to be done, and especially if Mayor Clark is walking down 218th, we don't want that to be dangerous, because I wouldn't want Floyd or Rainier to get hit. I mean, Mayor Clark to get hit. But all kidding aside, if we split them apart, because it's only 218th that would be associated with Beaton Park, and the Southeast 8th would potentially be completely independent. So I don't know if that's something we want to look at, actually splitting those into two separate items, and does that make it, you know, smaller bites and easier to get done? So I mean, I do concur that safety projects really do need to come first and foremost, and I think schools and parks attract pedestrians, which is a good thing, but if we're going to attract pedestrians, we should probably have a place for them to safely be. So I do share Deputy Mayor's concerns. I also understand the constraints that if we are doing the park master plan, we kind of have a chicken and egg situation there. I appreciate the more realistic funding models, and I guess maybe beyond this particular tip, as we move forward, we should talk more about that, and I'm guessing we'll get into that with our fiscal sustainability projects, about how we appropriately fund our capital projects. Sammamish has been using that general fund balance to fund all of our capital projects, and that's really not a sustainable plan forward. So we definitely have to fix that. But I think this is a pretty good shot at an interim sort of what can we do over the next year while we're making that bigger plan. So I really appreciate all your work. Thanks. Oh, can I just share? I learned a new thing. Did you know that there's a peanut roundabout? Did you know that that's a thing? And it's like two roundabouts that are like connected in the middle. and it was really cool. And I was pretty sure we couldn't do one in Sammamish, but I thought we could play Transportation Jeopardy, and it's like, I have a solution. Can we find a problem to match it to? It was really cool, though. Anyway, thanks.
Just one quick note, Councilmember Stewart. The project is TR 18 covers that Southeast 8th and 218th part of the whole corridor. And within that, it's actually broken into two segments. It's a segment A and a segment B, the east-west segment and then the north-south segment. It might be explained a little bit better in the Exhibit 3 for that project. So maybe take a quick glance at that.
Yeah, I just think on the tip, it would be good to split it, right? Because we might do them independently. So when they're a single line item, it kind of looks like they have to be lumped together. And there might even be different approaches we can take, you know, interim and long-term for each one of those. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Council, do you have anything else before, or staff, do you have any more comments before we open the public hearing?
From staff.
All righty. Okay, so I don't know if we have any comments signed up. I know we have some for the Housing Diversification Toolkit. So I'm opening up the 2024 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Plan public hearing. This will be open from now until June 20th, when staff will come back and present and probably help us incorporate any comments that we receive from the public. So do we have any for the tip? Mary?
Hi, Mary Wichter, Sammamish, 23 years. I didn't prepare anything to speak, and I wasn't going to speak, but based on your discussion, I've lived in this city a long time and used it a lot of different ways. I used to drive out of the city with my kids every day to do all the activities, and we started doing more stuff on campus. I've volunteered at schools for decades doing things and saw a lot of difference. So I'm just going to throw out some ideas here. On 218th, you really need that sidewalk because there just isn't anything on either side. It's super steep and your sight distance is there. So I'm going to suggest just a couple things. I have been learning about shared use paths that are on this side. They can be gravel or they can be paved. There's a good example of that if you go down to 12th to Southeast 24th. There's the road, and then the shared use path is actually up separated, so you can almost have green stormwater there. The other thing I've seen, because I do stormwater a lot, is by the Met Market, there's the Sammamish School there. I don't know if you've ever driven around their little peanut roundabout thing they have in their parking lot, but they have where the cars park, or they used to park, it's a geogrid, so it's like either hexagons or octagons, and it's literally just, there's a curb, there's no sidewalk thing, there's the geogrid and it's grass, and it works well enough that the cars can park on it. And so you probably have to do some stormwater, but I think that would limit it, and I think that could maybe be done temporarily somewhere for Deputy Mayor Lamb's concern about it being 6 years before. You also heard from other people in public comment, I think particularly Don Jaron and other people, there are other ways to move people around Big Rock Park and Beaton Hill if you look for different connectivity. And I know that might be hard to do, but I think that that's one of the solutions. I'm also going to suggest, I'm from Bozeman, Montana, and I do a lot of those meetings, and I've started noticing, like I know in Chestnut Estates, where former Mayor Christy Malchow lives, there's a wetland. So at one part, they just have the road, they just have a sidewalk on one side, and they don't have anything on the other side because there's a wetland. And I honestly think, like on Southeast 8th, you've got most of the sidewalk there from Stone Creek. All you need is that little part. You don't need to do it on both sides where those big lovely trees have all been cut down, and you have very low density on that side. So I think where all the new houses are, you can go. So I think on 218th, you could almost just do one side. And then on Southeast 8th, you could just do one side. You can consider using geo things or shared use paths or just a paved path that's maybe narrower, those types of things. The other thing I wanted to speak to is when I'm out driving, when I'm not at home, people are really ripping around this city. I mean, they're going way over the speed limit. My husband walks and almost gets hit by people. He had his water bottle crushed the other day. I really think speed control needs to change. And in Bozeman, they've had some people killed. So they have a thing called Safe Streets Are For Everybody. And one of the things they're saying is if you could go 20 miles per hour in residence rather than 25, a lot easier on people, a lot less accidents, less lethal ones. So that's my deal. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And then do we have anybody online?
If you wish to provide comment, please raise your hand online. I don't see any commenters. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so like I mentioned, this will be open until our 20 June meeting. So Audrey or Doug or Lindsay, did you have anything else?
Oh, go ahead, Ed.
Oh, just confirming that we don't have any direction from majority of council to make changes, or do we want to consider that? I just want to make sure that the final draft we would come back with on the 20th reflects everything that the council would like to see.
You've done such a great job on this. I mean, I think we're all very, very happy, and you should just looking at our little bobbleheads going right now.
No,
Deputy Mayor Lamb?
I think we need to do something on TR 18. I mean, we just heard from Mary Richter, and we just heard from Councilmember Stewart. I think there's enough people. I think that we're just looking for an interim solution. Like, it doesn't need to be a sidewalk. It could be a path. The mayor just said we should just make our own now.
I have a chainsaw. I don't know if you want to make a formal motion on that, or if staff wants to come back, or if there's an option to do things via email, gathering some information or giving us some options. I don't know, Scott, if you have any good ideas.
I think I'd like to ask the staff take a look at this and come back. One of the pieces I want to point out is council did approve the decision criteria for how projects made it on the list. And so I just want to, I understand the desire and the need. So let's see if we can be creative without trying to upend the decision criteria. Because I think with all things like this is really important for as we move forward, so that people know how projects get on there, as opposed to someone's desire over the criteria that council has already determined. And I do hear what council is saying, so let us see if we can go back and come up with an elegant solution that we could try to address that, at least in the near term, while we wait for the PROS plan and the system completion plan to move forward.
Thanks, Scott.
Councilmember Treen?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So first, the improvement projects for concurrency are a must. Second is that there's no mention anywhere here on addressing the choke points issues on the for the community, and I think the community values safety, and so to not address that at all, or to have that be a part of it, seems to be a miss. The connection projects, my first initial reaction to that was that the question is, has it been to the Planning Commission to have a look at these connection projects, the new ones that were added? So first the question is, were they looked at by the Planning Commission?
No, not recently. They were in the town center plan, which was reviewed by the Planning Commission when it was adopted, and City Council as well at that time.
Right, but there seems to be, if I'm not mistaken, especially on TR 127, the Southeast Connector Road, there seems to be a huge challenge there to actually be able to build that road. So the question would be, is this even a road that's buildable? And then if it's not, then it needs to be removed off of the TIP plan, so that we're being at least transparent in the fact that it's not buildable. The other one is that Northeast Connection Road has some definite challenges to it. I'll put it that way, and that we have probably a need to look at that one more closely. And so having it on the plan for this one, I don't know if it's something that you have it slated here for complete design and construction. And I'm like, how are you going to get that done even in 6 years if the difficulties of even doing the project are going to raise the price up to a level that is not manageable? And then the last two, and this is kind of why I'd like to go down to the Planning Commission, is that there's no information coming to us as to why there's a reason why this should be put on to the tip. And so how are you going to, where's the funding coming from? How are you going to fund this? And then who's going to pay for it? And then how much is it really benefiting the city versus benefiting a developer? So we have to look at that cost-benefit ratio. It has to be looked at, and that's something that that's why we have a planning commission, to look at that kind of information so that they can turn around and give us a recommendation on a TIP plan that would be able to be moved forward. At this point, I don't see how I could even approve this particular TIP in the condition that it's coming to us in. Thank you very much for your time and consideration on those points.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, I just want to throw out there, I appreciated Mary's comments about creative solutions and also about the speeding. And again, I'm going to throw out, I really want to see us look at getting traffic cameras, because not only will it potentially help slow people down and be a safety project, it will potentially raise revenue, and then we can use it to fund more safety projects. So I'm just gonna, I know that's another project, but there's no better time than the present to be looking at that and helping to slow people down and raise revenue all at the same time.
So realizing you probably didn't get a majority on anything yet, what would help staff the best? What should we do?
I think we actually heard from the conversation around 218th was very helpful. So we can meet with our capital project teams, and again, we want to make sure that we're still following our categories and prioritizations, but we can see if there may be some other interim solutions there. And all the comments were very much appreciated, both from the public and from council. We look forward to hopefully receiving more engagement from the community regarding the TIP. And I think we have enough to actually go in and go ahead and make some adjustments and then come back. And on the 20th, we will make sure that we have some notes in our exhibits on how we have addressed the comments made this evening and any that we've collected in the next few weeks. So Doug and Lindsay, do we have any clarifying questions of council? Okay.
No, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Howe?
I think the last thing is just sort of a general question I have, maybe for Scott, and it has to do with scope creep. And that, we've got a plan. There's some things that are unfunded. I believe it when it says it's unfunded. My concern is that we put other projects at risk when we look at adding, can you come up with potential workaround for this or that? And maybe that's not a fair question, but I wonder how much we throw a spanner in the works when we say, can you find a workaround for this or that? I'm concerned about lack of rigor on our part.
Appreciate that, Councilmember Howe. I would say I think there is a difference between, and I do not want to knock the project that I'm going to reference because I think it's a good one, but the Lewis Thompson Tightline started as a stormwater project and has turned into a transportation project, and a fairly substantial one. That is what I would call, again, it was all positive, but that is that's what I would call scope creep if we are adding significant chunks. I think trying to find short-term solutions, and by that, I don't intend, or I don't think that the team is going to try to find something that we could build in permanence. I think it would have to be some version of a temporary fix, because if we're going to do it, we do need to follow our protocols and the criteria and the systems we have in place for if we're going to do some version of a sidewalk, that it has to meet our standards. So I think that's where trying to find smaller wins, if you will, to try to recognizing the community need versus trying to do our bigger projects. And I think from the perspective of the TIP overall, we were trying to be very upfront about how much money there is or is not. And what is on there, you will see, and is interesting, we had this conversation as the team, Lewis Thompson, if you scored as an actual project on its own, didn't score very high. But we've already moving forward with, so we've committed funds to that. So that's why I want council to be really careful about what we put on here, because we're committing to the ones that are funded, we're committing to those funds. And once we start a project, I think it's very important to recognize that we can't stop. So if we're spending money, we need to know that we're moving forward with it, because they get expensive quick. So I think that's where I would see the difference. And again, we may not be able to find a solution, but I think it's incumbent on us, particularly with the cost of things, to try to find creative, innovative, low-cost solutions that get maybe 50 to 75% of what you might otherwise get, but at full cost for much, much lower. And I think that's something that we need to continually work on and try to be creative in order to get meet the community need as best as possible.
Great. No, that sounds good. So we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks with your magical inventions. And we really appreciate your time and work on this. It looks good. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Cool.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
I know we do need to extend, and I don't know if we can amend, since we have a couple of arts commissioners here, to put that before your stuff, David. I don't know if that would be okay, or if council, to put 16. Or can I do that, Carrie? Can I split?
Certainly.
Okay. I'm gonna move this first, and then I'll have somebody do the bad job of extending the meeting. Okay. So I move to amend the agenda to move item number 16, the approval of Arts Commission DEI sculpture location, to our next agenda item.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. And then I'm guessing we probably need at least an hour additional, and we can always. I'm going to look at David. Sorry, not for the Arts Commission. Sorry. I'm just thinking, no, yeah. Yeah, if someone wants to make a motion.
An hour should work. The challenge we have is we have a consultant based in Denver who is doing a presentation, so we're up against a clock as well. So we're hopeful to move this along and be able to keep him on board, and so we don't have to do a pinch hit effort and have staff do the presentation.
Got it. So sorry. Is that item 14 or 15?
That's the housing item next, or that would have been next.
Okay. We will go quickly. Sorry, David. All right. So I move to extend the meeting to 11.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Okay. Anjali.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Mr. City Manager. I'm Anjali Maya, Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities. And your next topic is the approval of the location of the DEIB sculpture. I will give staff a minute to get the presentation up. Just to refresh Council on this project, it is a project that was initiated by City Council and assigned to the Arts Commission a few years ago. And the last time the Arts Commission was in front of you, Council did vote on the artist, but requested that an alternate location be identified for this sculpture. So we are back tonight with the Arts Commission and staff and have a recommended location for your consideration and approval. With that, I will turn it over to Emily Scott, our Recreation and Cultural Services Manager, who is also the staff liaison for the Arts Commission.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Emily Scott, the city's Recreation and Cultural Services Manager. This evening, we're very excited to be coming to you with this project and present our recommendation for the DEI sculpture location. All right. On the screen in front of you, you will see the history of this project since it started in 2020. Last October, we received your approval for the artist selection through the RFP process. After reviewing multiple locations, the Arts Commission, Artist, and Parks Department worked together to bring you the best location possible for this art. And tonight we are here to ask for your approval for that. The final art will be presented back in front of this council before installation. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the chair of the Arts Commission, Megan Seletrenikoff.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and City Manager. My name is Megan. The last time I was in front of you was in October of 2022. And as Emily said, we're very excited to be able to present the Arts Commission's recommendations for a location for the DEI sculpture that began in 2020. So this is the artist that we have selected and has been approved by City Council. It's just a quick reminder, it's Jasmine Iona Brown. And these are some examples of the pieces that she proposed to us. The items will be, or the sculptures will be several pieces. That'll be a series of cut metal sculptures that will represent the diverse youth and members of our community in a way. There'll be 5 of them. There'll be freestanding silhouettes that are about 3 to 5 feet tall. And then they will be painted with a powder coating, and those are some samples of the colors on the side. This is an example of Jasmine Iona Brown's sculpture, or series of sculptures in front of the Spokane Library. It gives you an idea of what the silhouette could look like with the powdered coating in the color and on the plinths that they spread out throughout the library grounds. For us, when we were deciding the location, we really focused on 4 areas. One was the aesthetics. This is to make sure that it's compelling, original, approachable, and would also allow the sculptures to have lighting focused on them. For maintenance, we really wanted ease of maintenance, limit chances of mowers, things to make it easier than for the staff, maintenance staff to take care of. Safety, this was we took your feedback very seriously, and here we really want to be able to focus on making sure that the entire community feels it can approach the art and that it's a safe location. And then finally, the suitability, which is placing the art in a gathering space where as many people as possible can see it, but also a location that ties into a close location, proximity to the City Hall, so it can really represent the values that Sammamish holds dear. So our final location, final recommendation, taking in all 4 of those different aspects, is the Upper Sammamish Commons, the reflection pond that is right outside this series of windows. This is the location that is preferred by the artist and voted on and recommended unanimously by the Arts Commission. So today, this evening, what we're asking for is for a motion to select the reflection pond at the Upper Sammamish Commons Plaza as the location for the DEI sculpture as recommended by the Arts Commission.
Awesome. Councilmember Napure.
Oh, I was just going to make the motion.
Oh, yeah, unless you have something.
You had a question? Okay.
Just very quickly, is the artwork in the pond?
It'll be capped. So the location, the reflection pond would be drained, capped, And then we would actually be able to use that sort of as its plinths to raise the sculptures out of that area.
I see. Okay, thank you. I just did not understand that part. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lamb?
Oh, I was just going to say for the location, I think it's a great location. One thing to consider perhaps is that they put in plantings or areas so it's not just the sculpture sitting on a slab of concrete, that if we weave in some green plantings or something that will also improve the safety so that kids will stay off the sculpture and it'll still allow people like a place to sit as well. And it'd be a little bit more inviting, I think, also, instead of like a whole slab of concrete. But I did have some comments regarding moving forward for the artist. And I think one thing that we did talk about in the next round is it would be great if the sculpture or the artist could figure out how to make the art more inclusive. I think we had talked about that, and perhaps seeing renderings of optional colors in the future. And when they do the mock-ups, to see the pieces in the environment and from multiple angles, particularly what we would see from inside the building looking out, I think would be really helpful. But other than that, I think it's a great location. Thank you.
Councilmember Napure, unless anyone else has questions. All right, go for it.
I move that we approve the Arts Commission recommendation for the location of the DEI sculpture at the Reflection Pond.
I think you seconded, right?
Oh, I seconded.
Oh, you seconded, sorry. It's like these things, okay. All right, all those in favor of the, oh yeah, okay, great. Opposed? All right, thank you, Arts Commission, both members. Yes, of course, yeah. And thank you, David, sorry about that. Okay, yes, I'm so excited. Now they'll be like casting weird shadows on the inside. Like, yeah, no, we'll be. No, I'm excited. All right, now we are back to our second public hearing, the resolution and potential resolution of approving the Housing Diversification Toolkit.
Great. Good evening again, Mayor, Council, David Pyle, Department of Community Development. Tonight we have with us Miriam Leitner, our Planning Manager, Jackie Belisle, our Management Analyst, Kelly Hildy, our Deputy Director, and Elliot Weiss of Community Attributes, who is the consultant who has supported our development of our Housing Diversification Toolkit. This is the final meeting scheduled on this topic. We've had quite a bit of work done on this through the Planning Commission and with the Council, and bringing it to you tonight for your final review and for public hearing. Our target here is adoption by resolution, with the idea that this is not a finalized topic. Rather, this is a foundation for us to continue work in our comprehensive plan. So don't think of this as the housing chapter or housing element of the comprehensive plan. Rather, this is the foundation and stepping stone into the work we're going to continue to do on the land use element and the housing element of the comprehensive plan. And with that, I'll turn it over to Elliot.
Good evening, council members, and thanks again for having me. Excited to be here and excited to have been able to participate on some level in a really important and impactful meeting. I've been tagging along since you all started this evening, and it's been great to witness such a wonderful community conversation. I've got just a brief presentation on the Housing Diversification Toolkit, formerly titled the Housing Action Plan, just a few slides to summarize how we got to where we are, and then I'm happy to take any questions you all may have before opening it up for public comment. A reminder of the objective of what was called the Housing Action Plan or the Housing Diversification Toolkit. We aim to encourage additional affordable and market rate housing in a variety of housing types at prices accessible to a broad range of incomes. So fundamentally, this is about affordability and diversity of housing types in Sammamish. A number of milestones along the way. Most of these are a reminder as you participated in them directly. We began this work in the spring of 2022, delivered a public engagement plan both to you and then subsequently to the Department of Commerce late in the spring of 2022. The housing needs assessment was presented both to Planning Commission and City Council in the fall of 2022, and again, delivered to the Department of Commerce in fulfillment of your grant requirements. And then ever since really December or January of 2022, 2023, we've been working with both Planning Commission and you as a council to identify changes needed to various iterations of the draft to get us to where we are today, where we have a final draft of the Housing Diversification Toolkit. And we're here tonight to receive public comment, to consider it seriously, and potentially to adopt the Housing Diversification Toolkit, as we have a June 2023 deadline to submit the final draft to the Department of Commerce. Since the last time we have been in front of you, it's been about a month. We've made a few changes here directly related to comments we've received from you. We've added language related to meeting the needs of housing young adults, people who might be returning from college or otherwise finding employment early in their careers in Sammamish. We've added language on the growth rate, the number of housing units and population added through annexation as opposed to actual construction of new units. That's been an item that we have been trying to tackle over the past few iterations. And in this case, we've addressed it directly in the H&A addendum, which is an appendix to the Housing Diversification Toolkit. We've added language related to streamlining sub-area plan processes. That's on the sub-area plan specific spread in the sort of strategies component of this document. And we've addressed missing middle housing with the recent passage of House Bill 1110, now that that's been formalized. So those are the updates in this current draft. Our intent tonight is to move to approve the resolution to adopt the Housing Diversification Toolkit as drafted in Exhibit 1, or to move to approve the resolution to adopt the Housing Diversification Toolkit as drafted in Exhibit 1 as amended, should that be the case. And of course, open to any questions and comments that may be out there. Happy to help move this conversation forward. But this is our final slide in the presentation for this evening.
All right, thank you so much. So Council, I don't know if you have any questions before. I know we have at least one public hearing comment before I open up the hearing. You have a question? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I have a few questions, I think, and I'm sorry if these were addressed before. So when we talk about the minimum density or required land use, that section, I think it's page 19 or page 20 of the report. I mean, is this what are we talking about the town center? Is that what it entails?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I'm happy to provide an answer, although I suspect that city staff may want to elaborate just given some of the interactions between this project and the comprehensive plan on this issue. But I don't think we intended to limit it to town center necessarily. This is talking about a number of your mixed use or medium to high density residential zones, and whether or not we ought to be looking at either a minimum density where one does not currently exist, and several of your medium density residential zones do already have minimum densities, or a minimum land use mix. So if you've got a commercial zone that is intended for a good deal of activity, does it make sense to require that there be some kind of residential component to it? And I think these concepts would need to be further fleshed out in your comprehensive plan update, and that's where I would defer to staff as to where the comprehensive planning team is at on those conversations.
And that is, I'll jump in. So that is exactly right, that there is continuity between this toolkit and continued work to be done on the housing and land use elements. I'm looking for the page that you're referencing. Can you remind me of what page
20?
that was? Page 20. It's the footer page 20, right?
Footer page 20, yes, like of the actual report. And I think it's like, it's page 27 of the packet.
Got it. Yes, thank you. PDF page 20, yeah. And this is another tool to be added to the toolkit that can ensure a certain outcome. And what that does is we don't want to see development by right be allowed if it results in a density that is not an efficient use of land and results in the types of units that we're trying to achieve. So it's a bookend that you can move up on this end and move this end up higher as well, and you can basically turn the dials and get the outcome that you want. So it's a great tool to have. I know that many jurisdictions do have a minimum density, even in their single-family districts, to ensure that land is being used efficiently and appropriately for what it was intended to get the right density as what was zoned. So it is something that we'll continue to work on, and how that applies specifically in different parts of the city. It could apply across the entire city if the council wanted it to.
But the town center sort of looks like an example of this minimum density land use mix. So if we had that policy already in place, would the town center be an example of that, of implementation?
Kelly, I would look to you as to whether or not there is a minimum density in the town center standards.
Yes, there is a minimum density in the town center standards, and it is a great example to refer to making sure, as David said, that we're efficiently using land as appropriate.
Great, thank you. I have one more, hold on. Sorry, I'm looking for a page, okay. So this is page 36 of the packet, and then page 29 of the actual plan. This is regarding the Housing Repair Modification and Preservation Program. I think, first of all, the link to the City of Bellevue page, it doesn't go to the right. I mean, I think they have a page missing, so it doesn't take me to that information. City of Portland link works. So my question here was like, who initiates the home repair project with the nonprofit? So is it the homeowner who has to initiate, or do we partner with nonprofits? Like, how do we get people to buy into this program?
I'm happy to jump in here. Or Elliot, I see you also took yourself off mute.
No, please, David, thank you.
So I've had experience with a few of these, a few versions of this, and one is that the city could offer a low value, grant to homeowners for certain types of home repairs under certain circumstances. Another is they could offer a low interest rate grant to homeowners, or loan to homeowners. And we could then, on the flip side, also pair them up with a previously vetted contractor who could help them do the work at a predetermined rate. So that helps them ensure they're getting the right deal for the work. For people without means, it's often hard to coordinate both finding the funds and scheduling and setting up the work and finding the contractor. So there are multiple ways to run this. I know that I'm trying to remember, I'm looking at Councilmember Howe because she's participated in some of these conversations. There is the ability for us to get funds through the CDBG grant, where we would be able to possibly start a program like this. So it's something that we're looking into, and I think there's a lot of potential here. We really like this tool because those that need to make home repairs and don't have the means, it's important that they're able to upkeep their homes so that they can remain in their homes.
That's great.
I would just add, it is something though that homeowners would have to contact the city to initiate that process. And so I think there'll be a big outreach component if we are to move forward with this strategy to ensure that people know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And one addition to that is that this could be the outcome of a code enforcement case as well, where there's a neighbor that has filed a complaint against another neighbor because they're not maintaining their property properly, and we have a property maintenance code. So having I've seen this happen, and having another avenue for them to achieve compliance with the code is great as well.
Great. And then on the monitoring plan, I think it's great that we're going to continue to monitor. But my question was, how are we sharing this with the community? Is there going to be a dashboard? Is there going to be like, are we going to update it on our website? No.
I can start. We had a similar question in the Q&A. So I know Kirkland has a dashboard that they're using that's up on their website. So if that's something that's of interest, I think we'd need to add it to our work plan to do a little bit more research into what it takes to get that up and running and what it takes to maintain it, because there will likely be a budget ask correlated with that, but it is something that we would like to do. We think it's nice for people to be able to see where we are in the process and monitor things as well.
Yeah, I think what really struck me when I was reading is that the specific call out to the number of hours spent in crafting and implementing each strategy. I think that was very specifically called out. And I think, I think even when David, you've sort of talked about all these strategies, how will we implement? It seems like it will take up a lot of time, right? So I think it would be great to just track that as well and to understand, how much time we're spending in drafting these strategies and then how do we implement them afterwards, right? And I do see like there's a spreadsheet at the end, the monitoring matrix. So, my question was like, is this matrix going to be published on the website, right? Like somewhere on our website, on the City of Sammamish website?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll answer that question. And I do want to go back to the dashboard as well. We will definitely be, transitioning our housing website with this plan and making sure all these materials are available. I also highly recommend the dashboard because in 2029, we will need to report our progress to Commerce. And so this keeps us very accountable and transparent starting on day one. And so this is something, again, we can report out to council on how we're doing. If strategies are not working as we had planned, it also gives us time to make some adjustments. So I think it's really important that we monitor our work, and a dashboard is a great tool to do so.
Great, thank you. And thank you for making the report so accessible. So it's very easy to read, and the themes and the icons, that was really, really well done. So thanks.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. And just for a point of clarification for anyone watching, this is, in fact, just a toolkit. None of these things have been decided that we're going to do them or where we're going to do them. These are just you guys coming up with all of the amazing ideas and starting that assessment. So I just want to kind of throw that out there before anybody kind of freaks out about anything. Like, these are just all the ways that we can, all the approaches, right, or strategies that we can use to try to achieve the needed and required housing units that we have to build for the city. So I think you guys did a great job. Thank you.
All right, council, if no other questions, I'll go ahead and, unless you have anything else, David or staff? Awesome. All right, so I'm going to open up the public hearing for the approving the Housing Diversification Toolkit. I know we do have, I think this may have been a Wen Tao. I think that maybe that was like from earlier. Okay, so Mary?
Hi, Mary Wichter, Sammamish, 23 years. First, I just wanted to say I think having a housing diversity toolkit with what Councilmember Pam Stewart said, they're really strategies. We need to use all of them. I think it's a very fine set. I think there's been some really good creativity, and I've heard, I think every time I've heard David Pyle speak, I can tell he's even been learning, so, and I think the consultants are great. What I do want to emphasize is that David did say, well, you could just require that everywhere. No. Please have an exception for critical areas. You shouldn't be building them in them at all. And you can't just, oh, we'll just stick a quadruplex there now. We don't care if they're on septic, and we're not going to make them do stormwater. We've already been through that, okay, with small single-family houses, and it hasn't worked. That's why you need the TDR program, and deciding things like TDRs and when do you get them and what are they worth and how much they cost or what the credits are is super important. And we're not sending those out of the city. What you're doing is you're offloading the areas that really shouldn't be growing. You're putting the density into the areas like Town Center is a perfect example. We have those great little roundabout things. They're all set up. I think it was $13, $15, $17 million to put all that in, and there was $5 million in grant money for it. We need the density to go there. And I think David Pyle has also mentioned, like in the middle housing, the diagram, the mid-rise is what you need. You need more density in Town Center because when you stack units, you get more tax density per square foot. So you end up being more fiscally sustainable. You end up doing less emissions. You have better efficiency with all your heating and cooling. You aren't going to need cars because those people will be able to use the transit. They'll be able to walk to Skyline or Eastlake or Eastside Catholic high schools. They'll be able to shop locally, and you'll have a core center there. So we really need to get the centers working, and I think a lot of the things that you're looking at will do that. You will need to have an appetite for land use where you're increasing densities. I've gone to enough water and sewer district meetings. I don't think you have a water problem at all, and you definitely don't have a sewer problem. They're going to be able to handle it, and they've got lots of ways. And you're going to need to do septic to sewer conversions as well, because what's happening right now is the older folks, they can't stay because there's no way to buy. They sell their house, and a family with 3 kids and 2 young adults moves in on an old septic system, and that's really not working, and you're going to be hearing more about that as well. So I'm really excited for it, but what I would say is Paul Stickney is the housing guru, and he does talk about numbers that are needed. I think David understands those. I know they met with them. I think that there are tools, including directly from the King County Assessor. You can get that data just like I get it for Tamarack when I present that stuff for you guys, and I think the city can really be helped by it. I think housing is probably the #1 thing we can do. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? No, not you. Yeah. Online?
If you wish to provide comment online, please raise your hand. I see one commenter that I will promote. Mr. Stickney.
Hello again this evening, City Council. It's Paul Stickney Sammamish. Sent in a comment today that speaks for itself. In regards to the presentation today, agree that the diversification toolkit is a starting point, but the housing needs assessment is to identify needs at a more deep level than it actually has. So I don't think it's appropriate to move forward into land use, housing element, and that affects transportation without having more quantified info. Back in 2015, we did a lot of work and figured out that at that time that many workforce and demographic needs and rollover housing needs over time, which is roughly 1,400 homes a year on average, showed that the needs were 2 to 4 times what our former growth target was. The current housing needs assessment does have some numbers, but it has far less on the specific estimates of what the housing supply to need is and showing gaps. And I've never seen internal housing needs in the community. We know our 2,100 number from the county and how we're allocating that, but I haven't seen internal numbers quantified at the regional percentages, like from 0 up to 120. And so I've gone ahead and done that since I didn't see it in here. And I got the numbers very, very close for households and pretty close for housing supply. I had to use proxy, which is the number of closings of single-family housing without rentals involved. But here's where we're at. This is interesting. And I could study from 0 to 150% AMI very easily because I use the 1-year ACS, which has that. And I'm working on PUMS data now. I'll explain that later. But I've got all the number of households in Sammamish over 150% AMI, and that information is very amazing as well. But here's the summary. From 0 to 150,000 AMI, there's roughly 11,162 households in Sammamish, and in 2021, roughly 25.6 of the sales that occurred were supported for that entire range of price. From 0 to 80%, there's 4,520 households in Sammamish, and 8% of the houses in 2021 supported those 4,500 housing units. From 80 to 150%, there was about 6,600 housing units at 30% of the households in Sammamish, with 17.6% of the houses.
Thank
so
you.
there are internal gaps.
Thank you.
I see no other commenters. Back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, great. I think this is gavel time. If there are no other comments, I'm going to close the hearing for approving the Housing Diversification Toolkit. Next, if staff doesn't have anything, I think we can open up for a motion to approve Resolution 2023-1015.
I'd like to motion.
Yeah.
I'll motion that City Council approve the resolution to adopt the Housing Diversification Toolkit.
Second.
All right, anything else on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. And thank you, Elliot, for hanging in there. I guess it's only 11:30 there. Yeah.
My pleasure, of course. Thank you all for having me.
Cool. All right, so our last item is our only item now under unfinished business, which is the approval of review of the final draft greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled reduction strategy for commerce submission. David Pyle.
Great. David Pyle, Department of Community Development again. So this item's a little different than the last one, as we're bringing this to you again at the tail end of its process. This is also a Department of Commerce grant-funded project. It's had a similar trajectory where it's worked its way through the Planning Commission and City Council, and we've had feedback on that and integrated that in. However, this one we're looking for approval, not by resolution, but approval in the sense that this is the first layer of our building of a climate action plan. So tonight we have with us our consultants from Brightworks. We have Aaron Hawking and Alexis Whitaker, and they will be taking us through a presentation, and then we will be answering any questions you might have before asking the council for approval of this so that we may wrap up the grant with Commerce and move into the next phase of working on the climate action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'll go ahead and share our presentation. And Aidan is going to start us off.
Yep. Thanks, Alexis. Good evening, everyone. As David mentioned, we have just a quick overview for you this evening of the GHG and VMT reduction strategy for the grant. So a very quick introduction, and then we will review the reduction strategy that we will be discussing, next steps, and then our recommended motion. So our goals for today will be reviewing the Commerce Grant deliverable. The City Council has received the complete document in the packet for today's meeting. Today we will review the document with the goal to approve this document. There's 6 sections of the document that you all have received. That's introduction, background and context, city goals, baselining and data analysis, stakeholder engagement, and actions. This slide is one we reviewed with you, I believe, the last time that we all spoke. Just want to provide a bit of orientation to how the grant VMT fits within the overall climate action planning process. The grant VMT is focused specifically on addressing transportation and residential energy emissions in line with the Commerce Grant. That is one piece that we're working on. That is what we're hoping to wrap up this evening. That is part of our larger effort in creating the Climate Action Plan, where we will have those measures focused on transportation and residential energy, as well as additional city-oriented and community-oriented reduction strategies with a broader lens on energy, waste, water, and transportation emissions within the city and community's control. So a bit of a closer look at the document. Again, this document is in alignment with the Washington Department of Commerce Climate Change Early Planning Grant, which is due June 15th, and the larger engagement will continue afterwards. So again, an introduction, the background and context, which includes an overview of the RCW 36.70A, K4C commitments, PSRC Vision 2050, and then an overview of the city goals. So the goals that have been approved to date, reducing VMT per capita 30% by 2030 and 50% by 2050, as well as reducing greenhouse gas emissions at least 50% by 2030, 75% by 2040, and 96% by 2050. An overview in section 4 of baselining and data analysis, including materialities, so material scope emissions, data sources, and an overview of the baseline emissions. Finally, an overview of stakeholder engagement and the actions taken to reduce these emissions as outlined. An overview of the timeline, which we shared last time as well. This process that we kicked off in January of this year, 2023. And we have the star to indicate where we are now in June, forming the reduction plan development, where we are looking to finalize and submit the GHG VMT reduction strategy and comprehensive plan update.
Thanks, Erin. I'm going to go ahead and share some updates that have been made and go into the reduction strategy itself a little bit more. So since our last session, we have drafted the greenhouse gas VMT reduction strategy, incorporating all of the work that we've presented here so far. As Erin mentioned, it includes background information under the grant, as well as the matrix of measures and actions that Sammamish will undertake to address greenhouse gas emissions from energy use and vehicle miles traveled. Today, we're focusing on the latest updates. So the first half of the document covers things we've discussed in previous sections, like goals, baseline, and stakeholder engagement. The second half focuses primarily on measures presented here a few weeks ago. So those are all energy and transportation measures, and those are included within the greenhouse gas VMT reduction strategy. Here we wanted to share kind of the upgraded measure matrix. The bulk of the document covers measures that the City of Sammamish has in place to reduce greenhouse gas emissions under the grant. We've adjusted the language around requirements related to alignment with regional goals and have reduced some redundant and overlapping measures. We've also done our best to find answers to questions related to the VMT baseline completed by the traffic engineers. That does not show up in the report, but it was in the packet. And to improve readability, the measures that you all have reviewed were grouped together into goals and actions with metrics and co-benefits added to start to build out an implementation matrix. These show up in the appendix of the report in their fullest form, and these actions are going to be carried forward as we develop the climate action plan. So there may be additional opportunity to refine these further, particularly with items like metrics and co-benefits. So development progression, the slide should look familiar to you all. It reviews the stages of feedback that these measures have been through to get from, into the final form that you see them today. Now that the feedback process, as initially planned, has been completed for the grant itself, we're looking to finalize the GHG VMT reduction strategy for the grant. Covering next steps and looking ahead, once the grant is submitted to the Department of Commerce, we will be turning our attention to the Climate Action Plan and Comprehensive Plan Climate Change chapter. These goals, actions, and analysis are going to be carried forward into the CAP and Comprehensive Plan chapter and refined as needed. We're going to begin to incorporate and socialize measures related to water, waste, resiliency, and the natural environment next. And those measures are going to go through a similar process to what we've seen for transportation and energy. So I know that we're excited to get all of those measures incorporated, and they are coming soon. Finally, we have a recommended motion to approve the final draft of the greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled reduction strategy for utilization in building the broader climate action plan and for submission to the Washington State Department of Commerce as the final deliverable for the climate change early planning grant. With that, we're happy to take any questions.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, so once, like we keep saying final, and it's making me a little bit nervous. So once we approve this, if we approve this tonight, like what can be changed after we approve this? And the basis for my question is that this has not gone to or been reviewed or discussed at all with our community action group. And so I just want to understand, like, how final is final?
It's only final in so much as it's a base layer, and there are opportunities to amend and refine each of the strategies that are listed within. I actually anticipate we will revise and refine many of them as we get feedback from the community. The ones that I don't anticipate as much refinement on, unless we obviously receive feedback from the city entity itself, is there are two components here. And thinking of it broken down into the two components that was shown earlier on the slide, there's the city-based climate action plan and there's the community-based climate action plan. And the city-based items are ones that you all are in control of, that the city staff are working to administer, that are budget-based. There's constraints on things we can and can't do. And those are things that the city is in control of. Then there's the community side, which are things that are really implemented by people in their homes, in their behavior, in their actions, and things we want to try and promote and advocate for. Of course, that's not to say that it isn't a little squishy and there aren't areas of overlap between the two. That's just part of policy planning. But really, I anticipate that the community advisory group is going to be more focused on and want to provide more feedback on those things that are related to the community climate action plan as opposed to the city climate action plan. So to answer your question directly, yes, we anticipate there will be further work on this. That this is an iterative process, and we would really much like to continue to socialize these and ask people as to how we can change them and refine them so that we're most successful, because at the end of the day, we're not going to be successful unless people actually implement them in their lives.
Excellent.
I would just
go ahead.
add quickly to that. We've kept Commerce in the loop about the climate action plan and how this ties into that, and made it very clear in our amended contract with them that there will be continued refinement of this document as it progresses and gets integrated into the climate action plan. So they're aware of that as well.
Excellent. Because I have a lot of, I'm big on metrics and how we measure. But I also know that coming up with the metrics is kind of hard. And so until we're pretty sure of all of the actions that we want to take, I don't believe it's worth spending a lot of time refining like how we're going to measure. But there are a couple of the measurements that I just want to make sure as we go through and refine this. So for example, TLU 5.3, which talks about encouraging and incentivizing, employers to offer like work from home and flexible work schedules. Our measurement is the number of employees within the city offering work from home and or flexible work schedules. That is an interesting measurement, but it doesn't measure results, right? Because I will give you an example. My employer, Microsoft, they always got like top 100 places to work because they offered flexible schedules. This is all pre-pandemic. But to actually get a flexible work schedule and to be able to do that work from home was actually really hard to achieve. So while they offered it, it didn't really happen all that often. So this is an interesting metric, but I don't think it actually measures results. And the same thing with like the very last one, like TLU 8.4, and there are others, but these were just really big ones where it talks about equity, right? Support equitable traffic demand management policies at the county and state level. And it says the number of bills put up for vote on equitable transportation. Well, that measures how busy we are. That doesn't measure any results, right? We could put up 100 bills and we could approve 0, or we could put up 100 and approve 100 and they would have actually no impact. So I just want to make sure, but again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that until we're less squishy, I think was your word, David, on what the actions we're going to take are, because otherwise we're kind of refining something that might change anyway. I guess is kind of my point.
So I hear you 100%. Actually, we've had quite a bit of debate on this exact topic. Even today we were talking about it. And you know, one of the things is that some of these are very simply transferable to a measurement that you can then use to understand how successful you are in achieving your wedge, right? That's ideal.
Yes.
We'd be able to measure it. We know how many instances of it or widgets of it were created. We know what the equivalent of it is in greenhouse gas reductions, and we can then apply it to the trajectory and the wedge. There are others on the far end that are more abstract in terms of their relationship to the wedge and the reduction. TLU 8.4 is an example, and that really is about awareness. That's about getting, it's the hype. It's getting people engaged, and that's hard to measure. That part of that is, I'll call it advertisement. That you have to put in a lot of effort in advertisement, and we should be measuring that as a metric. How much work are we putting into this as a city? If we're not putting any effort into it, we're not advertising it, we're not advocating it, well, then we're not going to really get people on board, and there isn't going to be a buzz created around it, and we might not be successful. So I would say that although this is not directly measurable in terms of how much greenhouse gas reduction it achieves, it is measurable in terms of the amount of effort we're putting into it. So there's a different category, but it's directly relatable. The hard part is making that jump. One that's more challenging is with regard to hot water heaters and furnace conversions and those sorts of things, because they come in all shapes and sizes, and it's really hard to quantify that. So what we end up doing is coming up with an agreed upon standardized metric. This is one hot water tank converted from gas to electric equals this in terms of reduction. Then we can count the numbers of hot water tanks permitted, and then we can extrapolate that out to the actual real reporting of hot water tanks, because most people don't get permits for hot water tanks, and we don't even know that it's happening. So we could try to find out what the reality of that is, and then we could translate that into reduction. So we could look at as to how that applies to our wedge, and we could report out on our success, right? So we've had these conversations, and we want to continue to build this out. I think having Aaron and Alexis help us with that, because I don't know the numbers on the back end. I do know what we have available and how we can track things. So this is a really big topic for us. But for now, what we've got is this foundation that we can look to with strategies and with a baseline and with a target that we're working towards, and we can start to fill it in and refine it and go after some of the things that you've just raised here and that we 100% agree with. So we're really looking forward to this next chapter. It's where it kind of gets to be fun. It's a little scary, but it's fun, and we have to figure out how to meet the goal that we've set for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're kind of approaching this is like, we have to submit this to Commerce, but there's a lot of refinement that's going to happen because, again, the CAG has not looked at it at all. And I think it's really important as we do measurements, right? Especially if we create a dashboard, I will tell you that if you create a dashboard and you're measuring it, people will want to see their numbers go green. And so if like we put things in there that are kind of measuring how busy people are as opposed to results, people will be very busy, but we may not be achieving results. So it's hard. It's super hard. But I don't think it's worth, again, diving into until we're sure of the things we want to go do, and then we can figure out the best measurements for them.
So one more note on that. Interestingly, the community advisory group was tasked with homework from their last meeting. We gave them homework, and their homework was to use a JOT form to submit their top 3 strategies around how we could achieve reduction. And there were, I want to say, 10 different categories of rankings that we're going to use to sort them. So at our next meeting, we're going to go through that list. And one of the things we're going to do is compare their list to this list.
Perfect.
And we're going to start to look at, what they might have found or added that we didn't have in this, or what we had in this that they didn't come up with, and ask why, and have that conversation. So we're trying to allow them to have their own space to come up with their own ideas before looking at this.
No, that's totally fair. Again, because you keep saying final, and so that scares me. And then the only
I think it has to be called Final for Commerce.
Got it. Okay, Final for Commerce. I like that. And then my last question is just, one, this is, again, a great document, very comprehensive. How much have you sort of looked at your strategies and compared those? I think, when you started out, you looked at other cities and other places. Have we kind of circled back around to say we've looked at some of the information that we have on not just neighboring cities, but cities that have said, hey, here are the things that have been proven to be successful? Have we done that sort of cross-check again?
So that's also part of the next stage. So we have this point where we will be looking at what the community advisory group comes up with, what other cities have done that we've flagged as relevant to Sammamish, because some of them, Bellevue's a bit different, Redmond's a bit different. So that's where we start to look at and cross-reference everything. And a good climate action plan, in my mind, and I'm just one person here, is not necessarily really long, but instead it's really effective. And we need to find those things that are really effective. We don't need a long list of things we'll never use. We need targeted list of things that we'll use really well.
Right. And again, don't forget the People for Climate Action, like their national chapter, created that report where they, again, looked at cities that are years ahead of us and what strategies actually worked and produced results versus others that maybe weren't as successful. So that might be a good source to circle back on for that short list, if you will.
Yep, and that list was provided to the community advisory group also to help them orient them as to ideas. So they have been working off of that. But yes, thank you. That's definitely in the hopper here, and maybe another data point, to work against. So.
All right, thanks so much.
Councilmember Napure.
Thank you. I think you both covered that topic, but I just wanted to again emphasize, I think, the key to success for the community energy goals, I think it says here, relies heavily on effective communication and community outreach. I think, again, you can know how much, mail you sent or how many events we had, but again, trying to capture what has been the impact of those actions, I think it's crucially important. And then, the metrics, the table that has been put together at the end, in the appendix, there's a column there which says metrics. But again, I think my question would be, what is the baseline for those metrics, right? Like, where are we starting off with? Where are we going to go? And that would be really great to see as we do iterations and as we have that dashboard. So I think this is a great plan, but I think I agree with you, David, saying that let's pick few things and execute them really well instead of having this really long list of things that we'll never get to. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lamb.
I just had a quick question. Under community energy goals, we're encouraging residents to enroll in the PSE Green Power program, and I was wondering where the Eastside Climate Challenge fits in. Are we encouraging residents to enroll in that? I'm not even sure where we are in joining that program, but there are energy goals in that, but I also know there are other goals as well, so I didn't know where the Eastside Climate Challenge fit in.
So that's one that if I recall right, there's a couple of these out there. One is there's an interlocal agreement between, I want to say, Redmond, Kirkland, and Bellevue, and Mercer Island, that is related to and I'm not sure if that's the one you're referencing. But we are not party to that. We could become party to that and petition to become party to that.
Yeah, because I remember we did, and we had talked to the city manager, and we were going to join. I just hadn't heard an update, and so looking through this, if we were encouraging residents to join the PSE, to join that, like I just didn't know where we were on the Eastside Climate Challenge.
I believe the Eastside Climate Challenge might be through the League of Women Voters, if I remember correctly. So that's a separate one, David, than the one you were referencing.
No, it's the one that we were.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I know Mike Sugg has been working with that team, and we should probably get triangulated on that a little bit better. But we did join up with that one, and we're working with that, I believe. But as David pointed out, the names are very similar on a couple of different ones, so please don't quote me on that. But I believe that's the one that we've been working on through the city manager's office.
Okay, so if we did join, then it should be somewhere in this plan.
And I would say that a strategy is to find and engage in all of the opportunities we can for our community members in order to connect people to services, programs, reduced rate opportunities. And that's something that should be reflected throughout this document. And I know that we will soon hopefully have a climate coordinator, sustainability coordinator on board who will help with that. So we'll make sure to look through this as we move forward and as we start to work on the next phase of this project to see that those strategies are reflected in here for you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Yeah, David, you just mentioned what I was going to ask you, like how close are we to hiring our sustainability manager? Are we getting there? How are we doing?
I can answer that one, council member. We have made a hire. She starts on the 20th. That's right, starts on the 20th. It's an internal hire, so we're very excited about that. So we're in the midst of a transition plan, but she starts on June 20th.
Thank you.
All right. So I think you're looking for a motion to approve this, and then if like Deputy Mayor Lamb wanted to add that, or do you think that would something that could fall in under some of the strategies? Would you need us to amend this to add something like that?
Miriam, what do you think? Do you think that's something, and Alexis, I'm looking to you as well, and Erin, maybe if she's with us still, with regard to adding another row in there or amending the item. Would you recall, Councilmember Lamb or Deputy Mayor Lamb, which row number that was with regard to PSE?
It's RBE 4.1.
I'm scrolling just a second.
Page 6.
Almost there.
I think we could probably go ahead and add that in as long as it is okay with council as a whole. It's easy for us to integrate in before we submit.
Yeah, and I didn't know if it should be something more general. All the initiatives that we join, but
I think that adding something more general for now, and we can start to break it down into different categories, but saying, explore opportunities and mention that one specifically, such as, and recall me of the name, East Side Climate Challenge.
Yeah, that's correct.
The city shall or should work to identify opportunities for to connect community members to services and grant opportunities or things, something like that. such as East Side Climate Challenge, to ensure the community is aware of opportunities and that we're sharing that information widely through the community. Something along those lines would be great to add.
Cool. And that could be just something we could say, amend with David Pyle's words, please. Councilmember Stewart, and we do have 7 minutes.
I was going to go ahead and just make the motion.
Yeah, with his thing maybe.
So
yeah.
I move that we approve this for commerce with an amendment to add a line item that the city will identify and join and encourage residents to participate in all of the regional programs that exist to make this better-ish.
All right, and I think you'll be able to, yeah, you got that. All right. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you, David and Miriam and Alexis, and Aaron is gone, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we made it on time.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Scott, I'll start with you, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've covered everything that we need to tonight. Yeah.
All right, anyone else have anything? All right, who's doing it?
Oh, I just wanted to mention that Councilmember Howe and I were at the 41st Legislative District Town Hall, and we got to, at least I asked a question. Rep. Tana Sen and Mylan Tai and Senator Wellman was there.
All right, anybody else?
I'll just mention that we have an EFR meeting and an ATP meeting this week.
Cool.
Really quickly, actually, Councilmember Howe, Councilmember Roisin, and Councilmember Indipure, and I, Councilmember Farrell, sorry. It's very late. It's been a long day. We actually went to a town hall a very short briefing from Dr. Schreier. And also, we had a GMPB meeting last week, and I shared out the information. It was very helpful talking about the housing bills and, again, PSRC's resources that they have available to help cities with the comp plan updates. And I thought it was super informative.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Roisin, do you want to make the motion to adjourn?
It's quite all right to use my first name. I'll allow it. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we did it. Good night, everybody.